Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Aaron's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
K-Man's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Brought to you by J. Michael, fashion for everyone. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Blake and Aaron. How are you guys doing?
Oh, you do sound really low this morning.
Yeah.
Still.
All right.
Yeah.
How's that?
No, not better.
No?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. The volume on the mic.
Yeah, a little volume on the mic. Might have to yell into the mic there.
It might be something else. Hold on. Let me make some adjustments here.
All righty.
Yeah. In the meantime, Wagwan.
We'll turn the music down a little bit. You just talk a little loud.
How's that?
Much better.
Way better. Way better.
Yes. I figured exactly what's going on.
Great.
Okay. Well, all these settings on this computer, you know. So quite a bit happened since we spoke yesterday morning. We had a house fire in East End that pretty much destroyed this home entirely. Lightning struck the house and it caught fire. And unfortunately, complete loss.
Really?
Yeah, pretty sad. So we'll be discussing this morning. If anybody wants to assist his family, donate, we'll be talking about some of the ways in which you can do that.
Now, would insurance cover something like that?
I hope that they were insured, and I hope that they were, adequately insured.
You have to have insurance if you have a mortgage.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
CBC has finally given some details on that vessel that we're talking about. So 5 persons arrested for drugs, undeclared money on fishing vessel. So 5 foreign nationals who were on a Honduran fishing vessel that came into the Cayman Islands on Sunday have been arrested after several packages of cocaine and a large sum of money were found on board the vessel.
Mm.
Do
you know
CMR sources indicate that it could be upwards of $80,000.
Wow.
In $20 bills, very, very small bills, that was confiscated.
Were they headed here to Cayman, or they were passing through our waters?
No. They came through. They're bringing in fish, supposedly.
Do they go from here, or they are from Honduras?
No. They're in a fishing vessel, so they work. They bring in. How it normally works is they bring in a load and sell it, and then they go back to their destination.
Okay, yeah. No, I just know we have a lot of fishing boats here that leave and go over that way and then come back here to and stay here. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're always back and forth. So they don't. I don't think they're supposed to be living here per work permit protocols. But they bring in fish and then they go back. But anyway, they might be spending some time here now, courtesy of Her Majesty's Palace.
Yeah.
So, and in other news, remember that story we told you guys about a week and a half ago where McKeeva Bush claims that he had relinquished his OBE voluntarily?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be talking about this morning. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Of course he didn't. The king King Charles III instructed that several people, 12 individuals, be stripped of their honors, and one just happened to be McKeeva Bush, putting the Cayman Islands on the map yet again.
Yeah, it's motley crew of people too on that list.
We'll talk about that lie.
Anybody else in Cayman or just from around the world?
No. Some of these people, oh my God, their record, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to be on. You don't want to be part of that list either.
Sorry,
it was the usual suspects.
I was gonna say you don't want to be part of that list. You don't want to have your name on that list associated with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, trust me, it's some nasty people on that list. All right. So flooding yesterday, heavy rains causing flooding. We're going to be getting more rain today. What can I tell you except don't drive your low-lying vehicles if you can help it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess everybody saw that one that got stuck and the regiment had to go rescue them. Big shout out to the regiment. But yes, right into the weekend, it's going to be rain off and on. So expect more flooding and just be careful.
Well, there was a lightning strike too at the port.
At the port. That's right. There was a lightning strike at the port. That was another incident that started a little fire, but thankfully nothing too severe there. And I feel like there was somewhere else. There's like 3 lightning strikes yesterday.
No, and
so
I've
be
had
careful.
I've had to tell my kids, I'm like, I know that you think you're smarter and you can run away from lightning, but you're getting inside, getting out of the pool. Like,
oh my God.
I'm like, seriously.
Yeah.
They are not going to be able to do. They're not going to be able to run away from lightning.
That's why you have a large pimple on your chin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I have a pimple. I have a
Erin's trying to keep her kids alive.
Yeah, I'm like, but if I run
all right,
really
folks.
fast, no.
Have fun. School's
too.
back in session, so good luck to all the kids today.
You too, and Miss G.
Yes. Have a good one.
All right. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, folks. We got about 30 seconds left. Let me just grab our Facebook link. And just send this out to everybody. All right, folks. We got about 30 seconds left. Yep. About 15 seconds. Buenos dias, everyone. How y'all doing?
Bigger, better, bolder. The cold, hard truth is taking talk to the next level. Right here on Bobo 89.1 FM, Cayman's Community Radio. We are still spilling the tea and committed to being part of the change that Cayman so desperately needs. Join Sandy Hill weekdays from 7:30 a.m. for Premier Access, Cayman Voices, Truthful Thursdays, and much more. Cayman's #1 talk show is now bigger, better, bolder, and more than talk. Getting results with hot topics, consumer reports, court exposés, and more.
I've come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on you. Let me introduce myself. I am the cold, hard truth.
Now, from the CMR studio in Grand Cayman, live, direct, it's the cold, hard truth. Now, join the conversation on 345-936-2626.
That number again is
345-936-2626.
All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thanks, Chuck. I'm having a look at it. It's a bit strange because I just adjusted it. Let me play something else, Chuck, and I want you to tell me if you can hear this clearer, because it seems like one adjustment makes my mic sound better, but then it's impacting other stuff that I'm playing, which is a little bit weird because I should be, let me just turn everything up here. I should be all on the same page with everything. So let me just check a few things. Yeah, I'm talking. I am talking. He's like, talk some more. I'm talking. Yay, talking. One thing I have noticed that's a little bit weird is that, okay, let me make some adjustments. He says my volume is too low. Oh boy. Let me see what's going on. I don't know what's going on. This is a bit of a strange situation. I can hear you, but the output volume is too low. Okay. 1 second there, Chucky. So we're on main there, and we are on main there. Okay, let me check this one. Oh, I think I see the problem. Hold on, Chuck. How's that? Yeah, I found the problem. That should be it. Yeah? Sounds good? All right, let me play one more thing, Chuck, while we're at it, and you tell me, make sure that this sounds okay.
Hi, I'm Leah Archibald. I graduated from UCCI with a bachelor's degree in business administration, and now I have my master's degree from Nottingham Trent University in the UK. I chose to study local and go far. Right now, UCCI is accepting applications for their fall 2023 semester. Do you want to study local and go far? You can, with a world-class university right here at your doorstep. To learn more, visit ucci.edu.ky. Classes start August 28th.
Okay, so you couldn't hear that at all? This thing is frustrating me. Can we say frustration? All right, give me 1 second there, Chuck. I'm going to just double check a few things here. Give me 1 second, folks. Because that should have been loud and clear. And you say, nope, it was not loud and clear. Ay, 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 caramba. Driving me crazy. Crazy for you. But no computer audio. Huh. This is so bizarre. All right, give me 1 second, Chuck. I'm trying to see what's going on here. Okay, this is just weird. All right, bear with me. Good morning, beautiful folks. I want to make sure I get this right today because we do have some stuff that's coming up that we're going to need to play and y'all are going to have to hear it. So give me 1 second, Jackie. Let me see. Wagwan. Okay. So you couldn't hear any of that? That's so weird. Because I'm just double checking everything and all the settings where they're supposed to be. I do not know. It's a very low. So I'm low as well, or just the hold on. I'm low or just the playback? No, you're fine. Okay, he says I'm fine. All right, Chuck, I'm gonna play this and then you tell me if this is any better. Because this is kind of weird. Hold on. Let's play another little PSA here.
A few drops of blood. That's all we're asking for Step 3 of the STEPS 2023 National Health Survey. These will help to measure the national prevalence of raised blood sugar and cholesterol, which will shape our healthcare services, our interventions, our prevention and education programming. Help us shape Cayman's healthcare services. Say yes to Step 3. For more information, contact the STEPS team on 936-4969.
Okay, that is pretty weird. I'm not sure what's going on this morning. Somebody just made me laugh. All right, let me play one more, Chuck, because this has got me a bit confused this morning. I don't actually have a clue what is going on. I mean, it should be good. It looks like everything, all the buttons are in the right place.
I'm Heather Bodden, MP for Savannah and a lifelong advocate for the environment. Illegal dumping is a crime, so please take civic pride in our home and put litter where it belongs. If you see someone littering, report it to the Department of Environmental Health on 949-6696.
Be a part of the solution, not the pollution. Littering is a crime punishable by a $500 fine or 6 months in prison. Brought to you by the Beautification Task Force and Ministry of Tourism and Ports.
All right, that shouldn't, Chuck, you have to tell me if you can hear me now, because that particular setting should not be the setting that it's on. So it's a bit strange that I adjusted that one. You can hear me. All right, well, we're going to go with it. It actually shouldn't be the setting. Ugh. He says take a picture, but that should definitely not be the setting. That's why I'm like super confused this morning. So that's the one that's on the online login, your login check, which is a bit weird because it definitely shouldn't be on that one. But okay, you know what? I'm not going to question anything that seems illogical today. I'm just going to go with the flow. Murphy's Law, if it doesn't make sense, just still go with it if it works. Right? Weird, but it definitely should not be that setting. But I'm not questioning anything. I don't care. Let's get this show on the road. One more thing, Chuck. I want you to tell me one more thing. Hold on. I wonder. I'm gonna do a voice note. I'm trying to think if anybody sent me a safe voice note that I can play. Hold on. Send me a voice note, Chuck. Just say good morning. How are you? Kind of thing. Because I want to play a voice note from WhatsApp, and then I want you to tell me if you can hear that as well. Will somebody send me a voice note that's like something I can actually play? Becky, send me a quick voice note. Just say good morning. What a hot mess. Okay. Let me see. I'm grabbing all these screenshots. All right, here's a voice note. Now, Chuck, I need you to listen to this and tell me if you can hear this as well, okay?
Hey, Sandy, this is Chuck Taylor checking in, making sure all is well.
Can y'all hear that? No. You see? That's the craziness of it. All right, one more thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do one more thing, and then tell me if you can still hear me. You can still hear the voice note, and then I'm going to play another PSA. So hold on. Okay, can you hear that, Chuck? And can you hear me? Yes. And now, one more PSA. Let me know if you can hear this one. Let's do UCCI again.
Hi, I'm Leah Archibald. I graduated from UCCI with a bachelor's degree in business administration, and now I have my master's degree from Nottingham Trent University in the UK. I chose to study local and go far. Right.
All right, so we'll go with that for now. So you can hear all three things. You can hear the voice note, the PSA, and me. Clear, but no voice. What do you mean no voice? You can't hear me? No, you just heard the voice note, I thought. Hold on, let's play it again. Oh, no voice note. Okay. Oh my gosh. So for you to hear the voice note, if I change that to mean, all right, so can you hear me now, Chuck? You can still hear me. Can you hear the voice note?
Hey, Sandy, this is Chuck Taylor checking in, making sure all is well.
Could you hear the voice note? And can you hear the PSA? When you played the voice note the second time, we couldn't hear it on Facebook, only the first time. Okay, so can you hear it now? And then, so I'm just double checking what setting. Yes, I can hear you, but no voice note. Still no voice note? Okay, this is weird. This one has me stumped. Can hear it now, the third time. Okay, so you could hear it just now. All right, let me ask you if you can hear the PSA as well.
A few drops of blood. That's all we're asking for step 3 of the STEPS 2023 National Health Survey. These will help to measure the national prevalence of raised blood sugar and cholesterol, which will shape our healthcare services, our interventions, our prevention and education programming. Help us shape Cayman's healthcare services. Say yes to step 3. For more information, contact the STEPS team on 936-4969.
All right, so he's not able to hear the voice note on radio. Everybody else is saying that they're hearing it, but Chuck can't hear it on radio, which is weird. All right, Chuck. This person is not listening on the radio, but they can hear it on social media. So that's a little bit bizarre. All right, Chuck, we're gonna have to test this out later. Not today because I got stuff going on, but let's try to schedule this for tomorrow. Because I need the one setting that you can hear like pretty much all three of those things and a WhatsApp call, which we haven't added on here. So we got to find some time to play around with this, I think, to get it all right. A bit bizarre. Okay, well, let's keep it moving. Good morning, Miss Renita. Good morning to Miss Morna. But as long as you guys can hear me and at least what's playing through the thing, I won't be playing any voice notes today. But Diamond Princess, Evelyn is here. Wee, Miss Debbie, Felicia, Stephen Nicholson joining us from the UK. Patricia Blake in the house. Miss Iva, trust that you are doing well and you're on the road to a full recovery. Been keeping you in our prayers and thoughts. Andy is here. Miss Sharon is here. We've got Svevlina. Hello, good morning. How are you? Marshall, you sound perfectly fine out here, says Pam. She's listening on Facebook. The challenge here, folks, is I might sound fine to you guys on social media, but I got to make sure that my radio listeners can hear everything as well. So it's a little bit tricky because, you know, multiple settings impact different things. So we're going to get it sorted out, I feel like, once and for all. Thank you, Richard, Cameron. I'll probably need to test it with some of you guys. Like I'll test Chuck on the radio, but then I also need to test somebody on social media. So I'll let you guys know when we're going to do a test run. Thank you, Pam, for the feedback. Richard is here. Jim is in the house. Olivia, thank you. Cameron is here to cause some trouble. So stop fassing with things if you don't know how it works, nah? The thing is, it seems to have a little midget at night, like, you know, messing with things and messing things up. I don't know what's going on. Good morning. Buenos dias to Miss Alba. Miss Juanita's here. Stephanie Brooks in the house. Says we have hope we're having a drier day today. I don't know, Stephanie. Based on the cloud coverage, the darkness, I think it's going to be much of the same. Blame it on climate change. That always works, says Cameron. Oh, that's a low blow. Low to the ground blow. Oh my gosh. Leave climate change alone. It's a real thing. Y'all don't want to believe it, but trust me. You see all these wildfires and everything else going on. Y'all, Yes, honey, chill. All right, Yasmin is in the house. Alejandro, buenos dias. Alejandro, ¿tú hablas español? I think you do. All right, Jonathan is here. Alejandro, you don't miss nothing yet. Morna, good morning, strong wilt. Cameron says, sometimes if you cuss a bad word at the computer, it starts working miraculously. Oh my gosh, I wish it were that easy, but it's not. Good morning to Miss Olive. Richard Parson is in the house. She says, I see all the late comers early this morning. Congratulations. Everybody comes to class on time. We're going to be talking about liar, liar, pants on fire. Robert, buenos dias. What happened to you? You tired already? Why? You're supposed to be up and pumping this morning. All right. Cameron says people can hear you on the International Space Station. Oh my God. No, sir. YouTube is all clear. Nathan, good morning. Morning to Joseph. Thomas is here. Leroy, hello. Wagwan. Cameron says DMS is going to have to give you a discount for all this trouble. Bonnie, good morning to you. So let's start off, first of all, by informing you of this bit of really tragic news. Lord, I don't know. I feel like there's no good news this morning, but we're going to get to good news. We're going to find a reason to be happy. So just checking on something. So listen, there was during the show yesterday morning, you guys know that we were talking about the fact that there was a house fire. So lightning struck a house in East End and basically burnt the whole house down. My God, just a reminder about Mother Nature and lightning and how dangerous it can be. Here are the photos. My goodness. Wooden structure, but geez, peace. Complete loss here, folks. Very, very sad. Wow. Damn. Everything is a complete loss in this home. So we're going to try to see if we can get some details. My gosh, look at the front door. That just melted. Whoa. I have a question about wood. I don't know who's in the construction industry, but do these things get treated? Are they fire retardant in any way? Are they treated with some kind of like repellent that makes them safer if you're building homes out of plywood? I don't know the answer to this. And I don't know, maybe it's only good to a certain temperature. And then after that, it really doesn't matter. But yes, this is a complete loss. What we do know is there are a number of people in the household that range in age for, I'm going to give you guys some ages. So, I mean, pretty much these poor people are going to need everything. So we want to try to talk to them because I say they need everything, but then there might be a more urgent need for what they actually do need. Does that make any sense? So you don't want to just go and throw donations at people, because I find that this happens a lot. You go and throw donations at people and then they don't actually need that the most urgent. So we're going to touch bases with them and see where's the exact need and so forth. Yeah. Okay. What a hot mess. So sad. And it's so ironic that just on Monday's show, remember we were talking about all these wildfires all over the place. We talked about Hawaii and Washington, and we were talking about California, not California, sorry, Canada, and what was going on in Canada. And, you know, we were saying that, my gosh, it must be so incredibly tragic to just lose everything, and how hard that is to essentially start over. But, you know, sometimes you don't even have a chance. And in this case, lightning hits. I don't know how quickly that fire would have spread, but you don't even have a chance to grab anything. I'm sure you just grab the kids and you get out as quickly as you can. You know, you might not even have a chance to grab the photo album. Oh my God, this is so sad. But we're a community that believes in helping each other. So, you know, I think that these people couldn't be in any better place in the world, because here in Cayman, people will step forward and will assist you in any way that we can. So we just need to understand what the need is. I was trying to get up there yesterday myself, but unfortunately the weather just started pouring rain as I was trying to make my way out there. So I thought better of that idea. So we'll speak with them, and we'll figure out exactly what it is that they need and how to coordinate some efforts to get them the assistance that they need. Okay. Wow. And speaking of lightning, lightning was very, very busy yesterday. I want you guys to be careful. I heard, you know, Erin on 106 this morning kind of joking about her kids, telling them, you know, she keeps telling them to get out of the pool when it's lightning. Folks, lightning is nothing to play with. It's not a joke. I can tell you that it does kill people. Now, we may not have had a lightning strike here in recent times that killed anyone, but, you know, I want y'all to be very, very cognizant of the fact that you can get killed by lightning. You know, I'm not sure if this person's trying to call the show. Let me see. Hold on. Let's see here, folks. Oh, no. They were about dialing, I think. All right. So I am reaching out to a family member of theirs, and I will see what we can do. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. So lightning also touched down in Georgetown yesterday and hit the port. My goodness. This one's kind of weird in a way, but it actually hit the what's the little thing called? The security booth is what I'm told. I think this is it. I mean, we didn't get a live picture of the security booth, but I think this is the structure that they're referring to when they say the security booth. And so thankfully it started a little fire, I understand, but thankfully nothing major. And, you know, it was quickly put out. The fire team was there. So fire was very busy yesterday. Thank you guys so much to our Cayman Islands Fire Service. They work incredibly hard, folks. Let me tell you, Make no bones about it. They are hardworking young men and women. And although they were not able to, save that house yesterday, I think by the time they probably got to that structure, it was like too late already. So, but they were busy. They were on the scene of this one at the port. And so, yeah, I mean, what a hot mess. Oh, yeah. But thankfully, this one was not too bad. And, they were able to put it out quickly. No injuries reported. I don't think anything much was lost in terms of, any equipment or anything like that can't be easily replaced. Wow. Okay. And I feel like there was another lightning strike. Did I not miss another? There was something else. I'm trying to remember now. Hold on. Let me think about this. There was the port. There was that port house. I feel like there was something else that went on yesterday. So, Mother Nature just reminding us that lightning is very, very dangerous. Stay away from water. Anytime it's lightning, don't be in the bathtub. Don't be trying to take a shower in the middle of the night when it's lightning and whatever. Hold off. Yeah, pretty crazy. All right. Alejandro says, sí, Sandy, pero solo con mi familia. So he says, yes, he speaks Spanish, but only with his family. ¿Por qué? Speak it with everybody. I need you to speak it with me so I can practice. You little brat, good morning, says Elf on the Shelf, getting an early start. I know something mischievous is going on around here. Good morning to the beautiful Miss Lucille. Says, I don't mind the rain, but I'm praying for the good Lord to keep the rest of what is left to come. I'm not going to call the name, but it might come. Say, bless you all. So Jonathan says, no on the wood. So wood that's text 111. So I don't know what text 111 is. That's a kind of wood. Does that mean that it's not treated in any way to be fire retardant? Can it be? Because I feel like it should be. Okay. Oh, I'm getting my videos handy for them. I'm going to play you guys. So not only did we have to deal with lots and lots of thunder and lightning yesterday, we also had to deal with lots of rain water, which in Cayman means flooding. I ventured out in it. I had to take Miss Gigi to her hair appointment, get ready for school today. She got to be looking fresh. Grade 1, rock on. She was so happy to be going into grade 1. She's like, I'm so happy. I'm going to go to bed early. I'm like, yes. Woo, we're happy too around here. But yes, honey child, she's in grade 1 now. Super, super excited. And she's excited. She wants to see her friends again. She wants to meet her new teacher. We are all excited. All the emails are coming in from schools already. This is what we're doing this week. And this is what I'm like, oh my gosh, back in the full swing of things. So she went to bed kind of early-ish last night and got her up nice and early. She's like, I'm ready, Mom. I said, yes, we're so excited. Showered, got her uniform on, ate a little breakfast, gave Zeus a hug, took her year 1 photo with Dad, out the door early. Got to school early. Miss Barbara, good morning. So I had to take her to an appointment in the vehicle that I was driving. Lord Jesus, this is why you kind of need more than one vehicle sometimes. Made me think, I need an SUV. I need a truck. It's a low vehicle. And oh my God, I was like, please, please, please. Don't let me flat out. Did you guys see that car? What is it called? I think it's a Mini Cooper. Well, honey child, they got stuck. That was so not cool. I was like, wow. I felt sorry for them. Let me see if I have that one. Do I have that one on my phone? So they got stuck in the water and I felt bad for them. Oh yes, hold on. I have this one. I'll show you guys. So yes, honey Chad and poor people, the regiment had to go and rescue them. I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. All right, hold on one second. I'm going to show you all this one. Yeah, so the regiment was out there rescuing this vehicle and the people in it. I heard that they, got them to safety. So kudos to the regiment. But let me show you a reminder of what people were having to deal with yesterday, because this is no joke. This water was serious, man. I mean, everywhere. So I had to go through it a little bit. Thankfully, by the time I was returning home, it had kind of like the main roads were had run off because it stopped raining. And so I was thankful for that. But here's the regiment video. That is what happens when a car gets flooded like this.
Oh,
Can you is the car okay like this morning? Can you just start it and keep going, keep driving? I don't know. Or now do you have a whole big mechanic bill as well? So yeah, so the regiment vehicles higher up off the ground, they went and rescued the people that were in this Mini Cooper. I would say, I'm hoping that the rain kind of holds off, because unfortunately I don't have a choice with which vehicle I'm driving right now because we're down one. But yeah, otherwise I would be driving the Jeep. But honey, child, praying for a little bit of, I don't mind the rain. I'm just praying that it comes later in the day when I'm not going to necessarily have to be on the road. But this is crazy. We're going to get to that story, Miss Irvlin. Good morning, Robert, Cara. Ivor is asking about McKeeva's OBE. You just hold on, honey chill. We can set the whole record straight on that situation. Robert. Did I just say Robert? Slap me bald-headed, honey child. Robert says, morning, superstar. Hey, you're the superstar. Alejandro says, I don't get paid enough to talk in Spanish to people. What? My goodness. Strong Wilt says also keep off the phone. It's dangerous. Is a mobile phone just as dangerous as a landline phone? Because I think with a landline phone, wasn't the real danger that it traveled through the line itself? Like it would come through the house and the line actually acted as a conduit, just like your pipes in your home can act as a conduit for electricity. So if you're on a mobile phone, what's the conduit? There really isn't one, right? So I'm curious about this. I don't know who's listening that might know the answer to this bizarre question, but do mobile phones transmit lightning or track lightning, I should say, in the same way as a landline phone? Because hardly anybody's using a landline phone anymore. So pressure treated wood, does that mean that it's treated for fire? So Jonathan helps us out. He says texture 111 and other types of plywood products are probably more flammable than dimensional timbers because of the adhesives used in production process. Whoa, more flammable. Jeez, I'm peace. That's why you don't want to build a wooden house, I guess. I think pressure treated, but texture 111 ply is very popular here for building. I believe it's held up pretty good in that fire from the picture. It's what's inside that caught on fire, which made it ablaze. Oh, it's just so sad. Sasha's asking about the traffic this morning. So there was an accident. She's saying what's causing it. There was an accident by, what's the location there? Right by Lion Center. And the person says, I don't know why the truck was so close behind that car. Can y'all just use some common sense when you're driving? I keep telling y'all, slow down. Give people space. It's not that urgent. Somebody sent me a video yesterday. I got to try and find that one again. I can't remember where I saved it. But someone sent me a video of a car. I think it was their dash cam footage that ran into the back of another car. And they were like, Miss Sandy, and hit a Honda Fit, of course, because everybody in Cayman is driving a Honda Fit. They're like, why was the truck following so closely behind that car? I'm telling y'all, you're not giving yourself enough room so that any little thing happens and you need to brake. Yeah, see this one here? Let me show y'all this one. Any little thing happens and y'all need to brake. You are not giving yourself enough room to do so. Jeez, peace. Let me see this one now. Y'all need to slow down, man. Oh my gosh. And the other thing that I see you guys doing that's absolutely ridiculous is let me see. This person says the gray Honda Fit got rear-ended by a small truck due to the sudden stop to allow the cyclist to cross the road. However, the cyclist did not pass the crosswalk button, or did not press the crosswalk button, also rode across rather than walked across. So this person was saying, Miss Sandy, can you please share this video to remind people of how to actually use a crosswalk? People, we actually need to be teaching y'all how to use a crosswalk? Y'all sure you need driver's license? You sure you need a bike? There's no common sense. Oh my God, what on earth is going on around here? So look at this one. So this person says again that this person you see the accident right there? Boom. Oh my God, did y'all see it? So he's stopping and he gets rear-ended, but let me be very close about who's going to be at fault here. So yes, the cyclists, I don't think there's any rule against crossing a crosswalk on a bike, like cycling across, but you should stop and you should press the button. And does this one have the flashers on it? I don't know. This is the one. Where is this? By A.L. Thompson's? I'm trying to figure out where this is. Which roundabout is this? The person says, can you educate people about crosswalks? I'm not sure which roundabout this is, but there's a couple things that I see wrong here with this. Let this be a learnable lesson. I feel like this should be the rainbow going, the more you know, the more you grow. Okay, couple things here. Cyclists. I would recommend not doing what this guy did, which is just cycling right through. No. Honestly, he looked like he almost got hit by the gray car, by the gray Honda Fit. You need to stop, make sure that people see you. Right? When you're crossing the crosswalk, just walking out in front of it just because the crosswalk is a recipe for disaster. You're asking for somebody to lick you down, to be quite honest. You need to take your time. So that's the first thing here. The cyclist is lucky that he wasn't the one who was getting knocked down. Okay. And then, so he makes it. And then, here comes the Honda Fit having to brake all of a sudden. But look at this. The truck is too close behind the Honda Fit. You see him braking and even trying to maneuver around, and he doesn't have the room to do it. So that's why he hit the Honda Fit, folks. You're coming out of a roundabout, multiple people all over the place. You need to give yourself room between cars. Stop driving like idiots on the roadway. Good morning, caller. Hot mess.
Yeah, morning, Sunday. I've noticed a string of activity going on with these pedestrian crosses, right? You see, when the people approaching these pedestrian crosses, the walkers are more in a rush than the cars themselves, because as they push the button, they're already on the pedestrian cross, as if they think that we are obligated to stop for them. That's not how it goes, I mean, it works both ways. Like you praying, when you pray to God, you meet him halfway. Same way how you do it when you press the pedestrian crosswalk. When you press the button and you look both ways, you look left, you look right first, then you look left, because the cars.
Wait a minute. Right. I need to process what you just said. You're meeting God halfway? Well, what's his half? I don't think God is accommodating anybody necessarily.
Well, look here. I'm not a religious person, right? But I believe that if you pray for something, you must meet it halfway. So you don't just ask for money and don't work.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that you have to do your part. All right. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how you pray. I mean, some people believe in just sitting down there and wait for God to do something, but I'm not in for that, right? But what I just trying to say, right, is when the people push the pedestrian crosswalk button, they've got to look both ways, because I see some of them, they just press the button and then you see a car literally fly across the pedestrian cross, and they expect to cuss people out to think that they're obligated to stop for them just like that. Many times.
No, people using crosswalks, I think definitely this guy, he's lucky he didn't get hit. He needs to use a bit more common sense.
And for the drivers, I mean, I use a little common sense as well. We are on the road every single day. There's 365 days a week. Not one day that somebody misses a day unless their car is not driving. Look and know where your pedestrian crosses are, even if they do not have the little flasher lights, and just approach it with caution. I mean, nothing is going to hurt you if you spare 5 miles per hour, because I see some people using the 25 mile per hour during the daylight in through town, and that's suicidal. Think about it, 25 miles an hour. You just try it one day when it's a clear road and see how much time you have to do to stop if some idiot try cross the road. Just think about it. Now, a lot of people look both ways when they cross, and they just believe that the car, they don't hear it. They're like chickens. Chickens go by sound. Until they hear it, they start running.
All right, my dear.
You cannot make this thing up. It's a national sport in the Cayman Islands.
Lord have mercy. All right. Well, Alejandro had me confused there for a minute about God. I was like, wait a minute, say what? All right. Here's the thing, folks. A couple people, like I said, in this instance, really not using common sense. And I agree with Alejandro. Common sense should be used by all parties, okay? So the cyclist, the person who sent this video in said, well, Sandy, the placement of this roundabout is problematic because it is not the roundabout, the placement of the crosswalk, it's too close to roundabout. And I know sometimes we get this all the time. People are like, oh, put a crosswalk here and there. And the people over at NRA often share this when they say, listen, we have to think about a number of different factors when we decide where to put a roundabout. And they talk to the RCIPS. They say, is this a good location for traffic and accidents? And, I think putting them close to roundabouts can be both a dangerous situation and a little bit of a good idea, because people need to normally cross in the vicinity, but maybe it's too close. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I could see how putting it so close to roundabout would be an issue, because there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of moving parts to roundabout. Like, you really got to pay attention when you're coming in and out of a roundabout, right? So ultimately the truck here is at fault though, because if you rear end somebody and you're not giving sufficient time, see, boom, took off that little bumper in the Honda Fit. Geez, I'm peace. You're not giving yourself enough time, then it's your fault. He was too close to the car. Look at that. Look at that. Let's back it up. See, right there. That is definitely not a car length. That's not even half a car length. Little box truck. You were moving too close. So where's my little gavel? We're gonna use it this morning. So the question is, Auntie Sandy, court's in session. Who's at fault here? Verdict rendered. It is definitely, without a doubt, the box truck. Other people could have utilized common sense, including the cyclists. So please, if you're on a bicycle or you're walking, you're also using the roadway. It doesn't mean that you get to ignore everything else that's happening around you. Okay? Your life might be the one that you save by using a little bit of common sense. So thank you to the person who provided that footage. It's not often that we get to see footage like that. I tell y'all, everybody get yourself a dash cam, because it'll catch not just what's happening to you, but oftentimes what's happening to other people. So box truck, you're at fault. You got to pay to fix the Honda Fit. Any questions? Bring it back to court, but that one is pretty easy to solve. In 99.9999% of the chances when you rear end someone, you're going to be the one at fault. So that is the single reason why you need to give yourself enough space. Now, a lot of these new cars have this fandangled feature where the car tries to drive for you, and it brakes for you, and it does all this other fancy stuff, which is kind of interesting. Sometimes the cars I'm driving, I'll be trying to brake. I'm like, hello, why are you braking for me? I know how to drive, but that's because the car has these 360 cameras. It's got sensors. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're not one car length where you should be. And if you don't brake right now, we got the problem. Modern technology, but I know a lot of y'all drive in vehicles that don't have those features. So you got to pay attention. Okay. Good morning, Damaris, joining us from NYC. Jonathan says, nah, man, the chickens have more sense when crossing the road than people. I cannot disagree with you, Jonathan, for real. Cameron says, done say, next time somebody blow their horn at me at a roundabout or traffic light, I'm putting my car in park and I'm getting out of the car. Lord have mercy. Miss Merle, good morning. Says, hope you had a great birthday and enjoying this lovely conversation. Oh, thank you so much. Jonathan says that true, that some people don't even press the button, but another factor is that there's an immediate flashing of lights when the button is pressed. The pedestrian bicyclists need to make sure that oncoming traffic is yielded before stepping into the road. Once again, yes. I mean, you think it's common sense, but like Jonathan says, maybe the chickens got more common sense than some of y'all, and they got little chicken brain, you know? Well, mess. I don't know, but y'all need to do better. Salvin, thanks for that comment. He says pressure-treated plywood such as T111 are protected from termites. Seemingly, the substance used is flammable more than regular boards. Oh, really? Oh, Lord. What a mess. Oh, so I can confirm that that roundabout is the one by CNB, Midtown. And again, that's a pretty busy roundabout. You got a lot going on there, right? You got traffic coming from like Credit Union Way, going down the other way. You got, people trying to go through that side road to like go to the other roundabout by like Foster's. If you're heading towards Foster's, you got people coming from government building. That's a pretty busy roundabout. And right smack dab in the middle of it is a pedestrian walk. I kind of feel like the pedestrian walk there shouldn't be there. Like maybe, well, they have one down by CNB. Why did they put another one there, I wonder? And it's not just there. Is there about 2 roundabouts in that same, there's one further up, like when you're going towards education department, before you get to the gas station, there's one like right there as well. Just slow down. This is totally avoidable had everybody given each other enough room and slow down. Mitzi says, that is the truth, caller. Common sense lacking. All right, let's move on. Jim says common sense is lacking in many. I tell you, yes, honey, Jim. All right, so I'm keeping a keen eye on the clock today because I do have to go to an event, to cover an event this morning. So I will only be here for a portion of time, but I got some good stuff lined up for you guys. All right, so let's look at the flooding, and then we're going to move on and talk about McKeeva Bush, and then we have a couple other things to talk about. So yesterday's flooding, folks, like I said, was epic. If you have a low vehicle, whether it's those Mini Coopers, these sports cars that are really low, consider not driving that vehicle if you can, because look at this. This is Pasadena Place. I used to have a store in Pasadena Place. A lot of you know this. And my God, I remember summers being the worst. This looks like it's gotten worse, if you ask me. I'd had to take off my shoes. The water was up to my ankle. Those days, you got no customers coming through because nobody in their right mind is going to want to walk in this. What I find shocking and surprising is in this plaza is K-Man Physio. Big shout out to the folks over at K-Man Physio. They do a fantastic job over there. But anytime it would rain, I would feel sorry for their patients because some people are coming in wheelchairs and crutches and in pain, and you're going to physio and you're having to walk in this water? No, sir. And there's something to do with, apparently the strata of that building is well aware of the issue and they know what the solution is. And because the solution is going to cost them some money, they don't want to do it. And they keep just taking their chances like, oh, hopefully this summer it won't rain. Well, I can tell you some of the summers that I was there, this would happen every single week practically. And it is very, very, very frustrating. So they have to put in a deep well, from what I understand, into this parking lot, maybe even 2 of them, in order to help this water drain off and not become a swimming pool or a lake. And they just don't want to spend the money to do it. But listen, strata for Pasadena Place, you guys are inconveniencing yourselves because I'm sure yesterday afternoon, nobody got any business, right? The cars that you see there are probably the people who work there and didn't have a choice. To me, this is just crazy. Y'all need to put some pressure. These buildings are owned by owners. It's not necessarily the tenants that are the owners, but they're owned by people, and you need to start letting your landlord know, this is unacceptable. The strata as a whole needs to get together and figure it out. Now, I get it, because when back in, I think that would have been about 2015 or so, when they repaved and redid Smith Road and did a little expansion in that area, they made the road obviously higher, right? I mean, every time you pave it, the road gets a little bit higher. And so that has not helped the situation, but it was bad before. So I really hope that they try to sort this out. Now, here's the other thing, another observation I made yesterday. I was driving in this weather on the Linford Pearson bypass. Big shout out to NRA. Boy, when they finally finish that whole section down there with the expansion and lanes, whatever, it's going to legit look good. I'm like, oh, this is actually going to help traffic up to a point. And I get it. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to bottleneck later. Duh. We understand that. Slow down, genius. But you got to do it in stages. Okay. And the roadway is not the sole answer to traffic woes, to controlling the traffic, but it will help tremendously. Just like the bypass, the extension of the bypass, if that's ever done, it's going to help tremendously. Look at how many years the people from West Bay were sailing into town. Like, people are like, oh, I work at Maples. I can leave 10 minutes from my house all the way in Mount Pleasant. I'm like, oh, aren't you lucky? Rubbing it in. Yeah. So we'll get some kind of relief, but yes, we need longer term problems. We need longer term fixes, such as public transportation that y'all are going to use. Because you see, y'all keep talking about put public transportation in place. We want public transportation, blah, blah, blah. And when it's there, you still want to have your 10 cars at home. So we got to figure it out now. But I noticed that on the bypass, part of the new lane expansion, one part of that was already underwater. So I messaged NRA and I said, y'all want to send some guys out there today to look at what you've done so far, because this section of the Linford Pearson bypass that you're expanding, adding another lane, is already underwater. I know you haven't paved it yet, but that little bit of paving isn't going to help. So I know that there's probably only so much they can do to bring it up a level, because again, there's the other road, like they're trying to make it as even as possible, right? And so I'm sure that's problematic, but maybe in that little section, you put extra drainage or something to make sure that that water can quickly run off and not be an ongoing problem. So here's another one. This was down by Tortuga. Look at this hot mess. Tortuga's parking lot again. Underwater. And this impacts businesses, You can't get into business. You're not going there. Look at this hot mess. The whole parking lot underwater.
Left the donkey in the rain.
Oh my God, the donkey! Is that a real donkey? Oh, that's a fake donkey. Oh, I think that's a fake donkey. I was gonna say, I don't think there's a real donkey out there, right? He wouldn't be standing up like that, child. He'd be running somewhere. So, yeah. So what a hot mess. Tortuga completely underwater. Hot tamales. Thankfully, most of it does run off pretty quickly. But those of you who have areas, Pasadora Place, Tortuga's parking lot, if you own that property and you know that this is prone to flooding, coming into rainy season now, make sure that you are clearing out your wells, if you have a deep well, but cleaning out the drains. And also, you got to have a pumping facility on hand. Like, you got to be able to call the trunk and say, come pump the water out, because we've had one of those days. And you're going to have to pay for it, because your customers should not be inconvenienced like this unless you want to lose business. Well, that's on you. All right, let's move on to Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire segment. Read some of your comments before we get there. Alejandro says, make them pass and watch and see how fast they can go. Who? Why drive close to people's bumper? What are you looking for in their car? My goodness. Girl, I did that sometimes back by flow by reflection. The guy kept blowing his horn behind me, and by rights, I had to stop. The light just turned back red, and he didn't know I put my car in park, and I'll leave it there. Well, you don't want to be, You don't want to be creating a road rage situation. But I do know that, again, some people just driving on your back end, like too close. Alejandro says, nah, them are yard fouls. Tailgating, says Irvelin. Not just slow down. Olive says, yep, so true. Sometimes I'm scared of them, the bad drivers. Imagine if they put a pedestrian crossing in front of RBC next to Hurley's. They're racing on that lane at 60 miles per hour. Where's the undercover popos? Well, the police can only do so much. And what I would encourage all of you to do, folks, is simply follow some of the road rules. Yes, the police will be out there, but I mean, are we paying police just to tell people to follow the road rules? How about if people just followed it, regardless of whether police were there or not? Kara says he was right in that fits a. There's 3 crosswalks at A.L. Thompson's is definitely not a good idea. The 3 crosswalks at A.L. Thompson's. 3. There's 3? I only know of the one where the dog walkers cross. Where's the other one? Okay. All right. Let's move on. Speaking of these fouls around the place, we've been culling them in our neighborhood. I think we got over 30 already. And boy, can I tell you, this morning was so much quieter. I think we cull another 30 and we'll be doing good, honey child. As a matter of fact, I can message the guy who's culling right now. This morning was noticeably quieter. Yes, honey child. I still heard him in the distance though. So go grab another 30. Yep, and then we got to keep at it because they're prolific at doing their thing. Wanda says, how about the police be on the road with radar guns catching people? Well, I just spotted one Monday with his radar gun. Like I said, they can't be everywhere at all places. So I think that at the end of the day, maybe they need to use technology because the technology can be everywhere 24/7 all the time. Put up those radar cameras that catch you speeding. But a lot of this, Miss Wanda, isn't a matter of speeding. It's just bad driving. So you saw that accident. That's not anybody speeding. That's just not giving enough space. That's not knowing how to use a roundabout. That's not knowing how to use a pedestrian crosswalk for your own safety. That's just stupid. Like the person said, I see dogs and cats and, well, not really cats, but I see dogs and chickens using the crosswalk better than some people. Oh, the reference to yard fouls wasn't chickens. Oh, I missed what y'all talking about. All right. Well, I can't keep up. Who were they referring to? Talking about yard fouls. Anyway, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about Mac. All right. So, Miss Sandy, good morning. Explain that pedestrians crossing is different than a crosswalk. A pedestrian crossing is different than a crosswalk? Say what? I think people use those terms interchangeably. So what's a crosswalk? Okay. Seymour Drive yesterday. Oh my gosh. Geez, peace. Blouse and skirts. Wow. Yeah, the whole place was underwater yesterday, folks. Unbelievable. Whoa. Doesn't take much. So, Miss Sue's asked me if there's no show today. Did I not send out the link to everybody? I thought I did. Hold on. Oh gosh. Forgot to send it to group 1. Sorry, y'all. Everybody else got it. All right, so let me show you now. Oh, geez, peace. Say what? Okay, so let's talk about this situation with McKeeva Bush. Okay. Oh, I need to adjust my camera just a tad. Okay, that needs to go like that way. I'm going to improvise this morning in the studio and put something underneath this because I could swear that not quite that. It's like cutting off the top of my head. I need something to kind of adjust this camera a little bit. All right. McKeeva Bush, what can I say? Liar, liar, pants on fire. Mr. Bush, you need to do better. At this stage of your life and your track record, you're not going to do any better. Let me be very, very clear. I have zero expectations of this man. I'm sorry. I know this sounds horrible. And y'all are like, Sandy, what? How on earth did I get that appointment wrong? Oh, geez, and peace. I know y'all are like, the man just got not do any better. It doesn't really matter. I'm like, okay. All right. So anywho, McKeeva, what is wrong with you? Well, we've come to expect that this man just can't tell the truth, probably to save his life. He's just not an honest person. Politician. So as it turns out, Mr. Bush, when he gave up his OBE, and this will answer hopefully Ivor's question, did Mr. Bush voluntarily give up his OBE? Why use the word stripped? Because he's a liar, Ivor. Okay? He didn't voluntarily give it up. Mr. Bush would have been informed that this was coming down the pipeline. And so what he did was he tried to trump them, pun intended. Okay? Just like Donald Trump, he can't tell the truth. He tried to trump them by putting up this social media claim that he was giving it up. I'm sure they sent him a nice little letter in typical British, we're going to be nice to you kind of way. We'll notify you before we make it public that you're going to be stripped of your OBE. The list was published yesterday and it was made public. And it is now, you guys can go on the Gazette, the London Gazette, and you can see the list for yourself. Wow. Mac. What a hot mess. Let me say this, because to me, this is quite shocking in a way, but I just don't even know what to say. Now, Mr. Bush has the distinction of being one of the people on the list that has had the honor the longest. He's like the second longest. I think the one guy had it in, hold on here, let me see. So this one guy, Richard John Thornton Pallister, he got it in June of 1996, June the 15th of 1996. And Mr. Bush got it in December of 1996. So within months of each other. Now, this is where the story gets uber interesting. A lot of the people on this list, a lot of the men are on this list. They're all men, by the way, are there for sexual related things, offenses. Mr. Bush, who has a history of egregious behavior towards the opposite sex, and some people claim the same sex. Leave that right there. Let me just break it down. Let me just tell you what the other guy is there for. Okay. Pallister, turns out he's a real little pervert. He's a sexual deviant man. Here's what he was up to. Some 33 charges. I guess he's a smudging worse than Bush, or they're just holding him accountable. But it took them 21 years to catch up with this man, over 17 years at least. And his span of terror against women and children as young as 9 years old went for a period of 21 years. Caymanians, this is such a lesson. He's supposed to be a Navy commander, well decorated. He was a politician, council, in charge of some council or whatever, Somerset Council. the ex-head of the Somerset Council, and he's being described as a sexual deviant, and he was convicted on 18 counts. The jury cleared him of 15. He still was convicted of 18 counts in September of last year and sent to jail for 11 years. He should have a life sentence. He's in his 70s and he's just being held accountable for stuff he was doing for over 20 years. And I can tell you what, if he was doing it for over 20 years that they know about, there's probably victims way before that, folks. This is the thing. These people don't just wake up one day and go, oh, I'm going to become a sexual deviant and start molesting 9-year-olds. No, honey child, that has been in them from day one. That's what they've always been about. Don't kid yourself. That is why, even when we talk about the allegations against this guy yesterday, who our government is going to put into a teaching position at the age of like 60, I have no clue why they're giving a 60-year-old a job around children to begin with. Shouldn't he be headed into retirement? And somebody was telling me how someone was defending him, but oh yeah, I don't think he did it. Try and hush him out because he's been around children in the girls' home and he never messed with any of them. Just because a person does not molest every single person in their sight, that does not mean that they're not a child molester. They're people, they're opportunists, right? So what they will do, folks, is they will find and wait for the opportunity to find the most vulnerable victims. So, his MO is that he is going to seek out people who are close to him, nieces, nephews, whatever, people in the neighborhood, in the family. That's not unheard of. I'm surprised that some of you say the things that you say because it really makes me wonder. And some of y'all actually work around children. And this is why we need to start vetting people who work around children more, because y'all don't have no common sense whatsoever. How on earth can you defend foolishness about, well, he been around other people at work and he not molest them? Really? That means that he's not guilty of molesting his own niece? That doesn't mean anything. What do you mean? Lord, sometimes I can't stand stupidity. Not sometimes, all the time. I can't stand it. John, y'all be getting on my nerves with the way that you think. It just is completely illogical. And it's always unfortunately, what's the word I'm looking for here now, where the victim has to suffer. I don't see you ever giving the victims the benefit of the doubt. It's always like, oh, well, the perpetrator, this, that, next thing. Really? Sure. Y'all are crazy. So I thought it was very, very interesting when I was looking up this other guy to see his long and extensive history of molestation, of abuse, and what they had to say about him. I said, unfortunately, the truth of the matter is, folks, it takes a long time to catch some of these perpetrators. That's the truth. Sometimes they go an entire lifetime and they die before their victims can even come forward. Y'all heard the poor lady yesterday. She was saying how, one of her rapists has died. The other one is still alive and trying to walk up and talk to her. I was like, wow, he has some nerves. It's almost like they forget. Anyway, the system eventually caught up with this man. He had charged with, like I said, a total of 33 historical sexual abuse allegations against 4 victims. Like I said, I'm sure there were way more than 4 victims. A woman and 3 minor children as young as 9 years old, spanning decades. He served on the council for 7 years. Of course, he's denying the offenses. Spanned a period of 21 years, with the oldest dating back to the 1980s. 76-year-old was sentenced finally to 11 years imprisonment. And at the time, the judiciary said, this case highlights that survivors of sexual abuse can receive justice no matter how long ago the offenses took place. Well, I suppose there's hope. We can only hope that that is true. And everyone is keenly watching, of course, Mr. Bush's own historical case. Folks, trust and believe. It's ridiculous. Oh my God, I'm running out of time. 1:45 already. Is that how much time is left? Oh my goodness, I need to hurry up. All right. So the bottom line is Mr. Bush was removed from him. It was taken from him by the UK, King Charles III, because of his conviction back in 2021. He lied. Says a lot about someone when they have to go to such extremes of making up a social media statement about how, it was I'm going to relinquish it because, I don't like the UK anymore. Really? All of a sudden, you woke up one morning after all these years talking about an OBE that you've had for 1996 for almost 30 years. That's like, what, 26 years? You've had it for almost 30 years. And now you're talking about you're going to give it up because, they're imperialists. Honey child, they've been imperialists all this time. Did you miss the memo? Nothing has changed. The UK hasn't changed. They're still the same. In fact, they probably were worse 30 years ago. And now you come talking foolishness. And I'm surprised that those of you who actually believe it, like, why say that he was stripped of it? I'm saying he was stripped of it because that's the true story. This isn't a make-up fantasy land bedtime story, folks. I don't know what world Mr. Bush is living in, but he oftentimes needs a reality check. And you all continue to allow this man to live in this world. I saw some of your comments like, yeah, good for you, Mr. Bush. Yeah, don't support the UK. Give it up. Please. We're talking about common sense this morning. Use your common sense. He didn't give it up. He's not giving it up for 26 years. That man would have gladly gone to jail. Well, let me not put my goat mouth in him. Lord Jesus. Remove the goat mouth this morning. Amen. He would have gladly gone to his deathbed with that OBE attached to him. That's the God's truth. Okay? So don't make him lie to y'all now because it's convenient for him to do so. Talk about what's politically expedient. Behave yourself, Bush. You need somebody to tell you truth, not true. You just have too many enablers around you 24/7. Hot mess. No, sir. Y'all are crazy. Your hand says position plus power plus family connections plus social status protect certain people, especially in Cayman when the system is designed to circle the wagons, especially in groupthink, senior levels of the civil service and other fraternities where the first rule is to protect those that may be need. That doesn't make any sense, but okay. Given their status or hold it to guarantee, you can get all the favors certain people and circumstances require. Hashtag stay woke. Okay. Perla says they come and try to talk to their victims because they forgive and forget, but not the victim. They never forget, but the forgive part is harder for them to do. Who forgives and forgets? The perpetrators? The perpetrators don't care. And I doubt they forget. Well, maybe they've left so many victims behind that they can't remember all who the victims are by name. But they know what kind of monsters they are, so they're not forgetting. And there's no need for them to forgive anybody. They're the perpetrators, so who are they forgiving? They need a good kick in the nuts. Garrett says they've been imperialists since the medieval times, medieval ages. Exactly. Leroy says Mac did a lot for Cayman. No one is going to argue with that, Leroy. The question is, all the good that McKeeva has done to Cayman, does it also excuse the bad that he has done to himself, his wife, his family, and his country? How do you juxtapose the two is what I would love to know. He's done a lot of good for Cayman. Great. Does that mean he can go around raping people? Allegedly. Does that mean that he can beat people up? That's his conviction. A serious common assault according to Magistrate Gunn. Does that excuse that kind of behavior? You can do all the good in the world you want, but that doesn't give you a right to also do bad and be a bad person. You don't get to have this duplicitous personality and then trying to blame it all on alcohol. Right? So, I mean, yes, you have to acknowledge that, in fact, what you guys seem to not be able to juxtapose in your brains is that someone can actually be a bad person that does good things. And you can have a good person that does bad things. What in the end makes you a good or bad person is going to be the totality of what you have done. So Mr. Bush has been paid for years to do a lot of good for Cayman. And he has gotten paid for that job handsomely. So even when, yes, he's helping people, handing out money left, right, and center, there's a reason why he was doing that. Now, I'm not saying that he doesn't try to help people and he may not have part of that little heart that is good. I'm not saying that. But I'm also saying that it's to get votes. You're buying votes all 4 years that you're in. So yes, he's going to give you that sofa, that fill for your yard. You guys lined up at the front door. But what has he created also at the same time? He's created a handout society, a handout community where all y'all want is handouts. That's the good? I'm just asking. There's a lot of questions that I could ask about what more he could have done if he didn't have these inner demons, like passing legislation to protect women and children a long time ago. But none of them can't do that because half of them are perverts and deviants themselves. So how much good can you really do when you have demons that big? Cameron says, what? Abandon your feelings and prey on the feelings of others. Alejandro says, amen, Sandy. It's about how you control the beast. I think Matt got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's side. Well, listen to me. Does it, at the end of the day, does it really matter? Because unfortunately for him, people are going to remember the bad things that you've done. And that's your fault. You don't have nobody else to blame for that. Huh? He has done that to himself. He's destroying his own history. To the best of my knowledge, no one in the Cayman Islands has been ever stripped from an honor, an OBE, MBA, whatever the heck they call them. No one has ever done that. Now, he will go down in the history books being the first person that has done so. What a disgrace. Cha. Y'all need to do better. Somebody say you're going to get me started this morning. What is this comment says? You gone get me started this morning, and now he did good while lining his own pockets at the same time. And so the king stripped him of the OBE. Can we, the Caymanian people, stripped him of honorable? No, you can't, because he wrote that in the legislation where he will never lose that title. So you go figure that one out. Somebody else says, will he be stripped of his justice of the peace? What is a justice of the peace? What are the requirements for appointment? How can MP Bush still hold that appointment and it's not stripped due to his reputation and criminal conviction? Well, this is a question for the governor's office. The governor appoints justices of the peace, and as far as I know, the governor is the only one who can likewise remove someone from being a justice of the peace. And it's a damn good question if you ask me. All right. I'm running out of time. Ooh, honey child. Kevin, I'm a little bit in overtime, so that means that you'll have to end, play the outro a little bit early. Oh my gosh. So someone has sent me some video footage of the burnt out house. I'm going to share this. And then I'm also going to read a quick list of the items that they do need. Oh yes, let me wrap up Mr. Bush here. Okay. This person says, yep, like people be swearing for people going around knocking on doors, like who is to admit that they were up to mischief, trusting people is a no for me. Yes, what a mess. Okay. All right. Okay. Somebody says, I wonder if they'll take away, another person was thinking this. I wonder if they'll take away max JP status too. That would be a matter for local decision, I suppose. That's actually, I'm going to ask the governor's office. I'm trying to remember the young lady in the governor's office, her name, but that is definitely a matter for them. And we'll ask them whether or not they're going to do it. What a hot mess. Alejandro says Joe Biden next. I don't think he's been bestowed any honors. He don't care about that. He don't understand. You don't understand that or what? Who doesn't care about what? Hi, Sandy. Your cousin Frank might feel his mom died. Are you going to send out your condolences? Actually, I've been trying to reach out to Miss Beulah to send my condolences to her. And yes, I'd like to send condolences to the entire family. We've had a number of people over the last week, a number of people that have died. I mean, it's just shocking how many people, in fact. The Hugh family lost their matriarch as well. Unfortunately, she passed away. Oh my gosh, it's just been very, very crazy lately. We had a police officer, a former prison officer that died yesterday. I think his name is a Mr. Williams. Well, there's an ex, oh God, there's been so many. There's an ex-customs officer that died, ex-police or prison, ex-prison officer. So there have been a number of people in the last week that have passed away. So definitely the McKeeva family is one at the moment that is also mourning the loss. And I'd like to extend condolences to all of them. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandra. How are you today?
Not bad. How are you?
Not too bad. Thankful for the rain. I'm sorry for people that have got a lot of water around them and inside their homes. And I really feel sorry for them. But anyway, speaking of Mr. Bush, I wish it was just a program, you see, just directed to some of these idiots that we got in West Bay, that they believe that once he show his hand in his pocket to give them a 50 and onwards, that is his personal money. The fools don't stop to think that every time he do that, he would have to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month just to keep that up alone. I believe, not that I know for sure, maybe you know better, and maybe or you could find out that the government does give them extra money, and not their paycheck, but extra money to help with the people, mostly the elderly that can't pay their utilities or can't pay something, or to help them to buy food or whatever the cause may be. And a lot of people don't know that or don't think that. They think it's coming directly from Mr. Bush. And may I tell you, Sandy, I have worked with Mr. Bush many years ago, of course. And a lot of the people that he's handing out money to, he don't bother to speak to me, and I know the reason why. He no better. In fact, he's not as good as me, and I don't care whether he do or not. What I do care about is the many people that we used to work with, including him, and don't work anymore because of these handouts. And make these guys mostly lazy and good for nothing. And we should have a law in here. If they have the time to sit on beach and play dominoes, and then the food still be going in there, because I see it. I have to cross there several times a day. sit on the West Bay Public Beach and other places that we have. In some places, I only cross every now and then, but the ganja set is would stifle you. I wish that it was a law to grab these people up and say, hey. We also giving you money. The people of this island that in an email, the government is giving you money, except for you collecting. And here's some Pete. I want you to go to Pete.
Can I get you to wrap it up just a little bit for me? I've got to run out to an appointment. So.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe clean up some elderly person yard or whatever the case may be. So I hope it was a program directly to some of these fools that we have down here. I hope everything goes well with your appointment and you have a good day.
Thank you, my dear.
And thanks for tolerating me.
Not a problem at all. So yes, the show is going to continue, folks, but I do have to go. Kevin is going to be taking over here for me, and we've got a video that's going to be queued up for you. Let me just show you one more quick video that has come in this morning of the fire. Again, urgent need for pretty much everything for this family. The house is a complete loss. This is the inside. My God. Wow. Everything burnt. Oh my Lord. Oh wow. Don't turn the camera that way. You just made us have to flip around. Oh my God. My God. This is unbelievable. Wow. Jeez on peace. So I've got some requests for some goods. Let me just find the email that came in this morning. Oh gosh, let me have a quick look. But pretty much everything. I'm going to post it on social media. Kevin, I'm going to send you the list as well. If I can find it again. Somebody just sent it to me. Oh, here we go. So we have a whole list of items. Kevin, I'll send this to you, but everything from girls, 5T or small uniforms for reception for Red Bay Primary, shoes, 11.5 for kids, boys, 4T clothing, women, 3XL, women's medium or large, women's small, medium, men's medium, children 16 up for boys, pull-up sizes 4 to 5 for a boy, towels and rags, deodorant, toothpaste, underwear for men and women, medium for men, medium for women, and extra large, body wash, shampoo and conditioner, laundry detergent, soap, back to school supplies, and shoes in various sizes, women 10 to 11, 9.5, 8 to 8.5, and men's size 10. So I've actually got some girls, I think they're close to 5T. I'll have to double check that I can spare for sure. I already was putting my donation bag together. So please, let's see how we can coordinate. Give me until tomorrow's show and we'll see how we can coordinate. I don't want y'all bringing it to me, but let me just find out how best to get the goods to the people who need it. And we'll go through that list again and see how we can assist this very, very urgent need. So Miss Elaine joining us late. Again, that's the result of a fire yesterday morning. Lightning struck a house in East End and the entire structure burnt down. And it actually damaged the second house, but this particular one was a complete loss. All right, folks, we will post information online. And again, here's a pre-recorded segment. This segment, I want you guys to stay on and listen to this. There's two things. One is about honesty and how honest can we be in life. And then the second one is about finding your happiness. I touched briefly on it yesterday. These are good educational things. I know y'all love the SUS, or 400 people of you listening to me talking about McKeeva Bush this morning. But these are the things in life, folks, that really expand your brain. And I know sometimes some of you find it difficult to expand your brain and you don't want to hear it if it's not mixed up in sus and gossipy and but you have to have a balance in life. There's a time and place for that stuff. And there's a time and place for the expansion of your mental capacity as well. Morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandy.
Morning, honey.
How are you?
Not too bad. About to head out. What's going on?
Yeah, can you send me a list of
Yes, I will post it on social media.
Uniforms.
Yes, we're going to circulate it.
That the children need.
Absolutely.
And I will pay for them.
Okay.
And the shoes.
Not a problem, honey. I'm actually going to send this to Renee as well. She's going to put this on the website. We're going to put it on social media. We'll put it up all over the place and see how best we can help. Thank you so much, Dexter. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
All right, honey. So tomorrow we'll spend a good time of tomorrow's program seeing how we can help this family. Okay. All right, folks. Enjoy.
A few drops of blood. That's all we're asking for step 3 of the STEPS 2023 National Health Survey. These will help to measure the national prevalence of raised blood sugar and cholesterol, which will shape our healthcare services, our interventions, our prevention and education programming. Help us shape Cayman's healthcare services. Say yes to step 3. For more information, contact the STEPS team on 936-4969.
Burger King summer specials just keep getting better. Introducing the newest limited edition to hit the menu, King Wings. Fried, lightly salted, unbreaded, and delicious chicken wings at BK. Complete with your choice of buffalo, barbecue, or sweet and sour sauce. Whether you're feeling snacky or want a feast fit for a king, Burger King summer specials has got you covered. The all-new King's Wings have landed at Burger King. Grab them late at 7 Mile Beach or Red Bay. Open till midnight Thursdays and 1 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays.
This is Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. In one of the most famous episodes of the TV show Seinfeld, the character Elaine, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, takes to the dance floor.
All right, who's dancing? Come on, who's dancing? Want me to get it started?
What follows is hard to describe. Elaine's dancing resembles a giraffe navigating an ice skating rink on roller skates. Elaine's co-workers watch with mouths agape as her hands and feet fly off in different directions. Here's the thing, though. No one tells her she is a bad dancer. Later, behind her back, her friends George and Jerry discuss Elaine's dancing.
Have you ever seen Elaine dance? It's more like a full-body dry heave set to music.
Did she do the little kicks and the thumbs?
What, you mean you know about this?
It's one of those problems I hope would just go away.
There's only one friend who is willing to tell Elaine the truth. Kramer, the character in the show who often says and does things that are socially inappropriate. When Elaine breaks into her trademark dance moves in front of him, he asks her what she thinks she is doing.
It's dancing.
No, that ain't dancing, Sally.
I dance fine.
You stink.
All of us notice things about the people in our lives. We notice oddities about our friends, co-workers, family members. We see their flaws and foibles, and even though we say we care about them, what do? Often, nothing. We let them flounder in blissful ignorance. This week on Hidden Brain, we explore the difficulty of sharing unpleasant feedback and new psychological insights about how to navigate difficult conversations.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm a good dancer, right?
I forgot to make my bed.
Many of us have a complicated relationship with honesty. On the one hand, we are taught it's important to tell the truth, always, without exception. On the other hand, we often receive messages about the value of shading or softening the truth so that we don't hurt someone's feelings. These opposing dictates can leave us in a bind. At Carnegie Mellon University, psychologist Taya Cohen studies this tension and what we can do about it. Taya Cohen, welcome to Hidden Brain.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Taya, I understand that as a child, you once received a gift of a jogging suit from an aunt, and you didn't care very much for this gift. Can you tell me that story?
Sure. So this example is from when I was 3 or 4 years old. My Aunt Bernice gave me a pink jogging suit for Hanukkah or my birthday. And as a child, maybe less so now. There was no way I was going to wear anything pink. And according to my family, I took one look at it and said, "But I hate it." And my mother, of course, was embarrassed and she apologized. Luckily, I don't think my Aunt Bernice, who's now 90 years old, I don't think she was too offended. But the story continues to live on in family lore nearly 40 years later as this example of my tendency towards honesty.
So, of course, lots of children say exactly what's on their minds, but I understand as you went through school, you continued to favor forthrightness as your standard policy. And in middle school, I understand you once gave your mom feedback on something she was wearing, and that incident has also become something of a family story. Can you tell me what happened?
Yes, so I was in 7th or 8th grade. My mom was in the bedroom getting changed to go out with some friends. I was in the hallway outside. And I looked at her and I said, "You're going out in that?" and she was a little taken aback because she thought she looked good, but she was appreciative. And she changed. And she told me later she recalled thinking that, wow, this is the beginning of the teenage years.
Would you say that your family valued such honesty, or was it frowned upon to you?
They definitely valued. I'd say my family is more direct and honest than many. And there's nothing that was off limits in terms of what we could talk about.
So after you grew up and entered the workplace as a junior professor, you and other young scholars got advice on how to conduct yourselves in meetings with senior colleagues. What kind of advice did you get?
So I've heard this advice where sometimes people tell junior employees or new faculty to stay silent, not say too much in meetings, things along those lines.
So to keep your head down, basically.
Yeah, protect yourself. You don't want to say the wrong thing and upset someone else who's might be more powerful or higher in status. So better to just not express your opinions or preferences.
Now, did you follow this advice, dear?
No, I don't think I did, or at least not generally, in that if I had opinions or preferences, I would try and communicate them, do so in a way that was diplomatic, but I don't think I held back so much of conveying my interest or preferences when I had them.
What about your peers, your junior faculty peers? Were they more circumspect in meetings?
There were certainly some examples I can think of, from the past where I observed colleagues staying silent or maybe communicating indirectly about what they wanted. And it was really hard to figure out what their true preferences were for the different group decisions that we were making.
Mm-hmm. In other words, they wouldn't speak up in meetings, or they would be elliptical in what they said?
Yeah, both. Either not speaking up or not communicating very clearly about what their true preferences or priorities or underlying interests were. So if we're talking about who was going to teach which courses or serve on different committees, things along these lines, trying to figure out what each person preferred to do, why, what was important to them. And it could be really frustrating if we couldn't figure that out.
Now, it's possible that, of course, that your colleagues didn't have strong preferences about what they actually wanted.
That's true. I think in some cases people did, and it would come out later after the fact if they weren't happy with the group decision or that the group didn't fully take into consideration their interests and what they wanted. And then I could see that if, members of the group stayed silent about it, and only after the fact it would come out that they were not happy with the decisions.
So as you went on in your career, one of your chief professional affiliations was with a group called the International Association for Conflict Management. And at some point after joining the board of the organization, you heard from an academic colleague who was frustrated by the way the organization operated. What did your colleague tell you, and how did you try and fix the problem?
So this was an experience where we were planning for our annual conference. So in this organization, there's a conference every summer, and in the spring, different decisions are made about which papers to accept. And people in the organization need to know whether the paper has been accepted so they can start making travel arrangements. And this conference is held in all different locations across the world, so travel can be extensive. So in this one situation, I was talking to a colleague who was frustrated because they wanted to know whether their paper was accepted so they could make travel plans. And I was on the board of the organization at that time. I wasn't directly involved in all the conference planning, but I said, I'll send an email. I'll find out what's going on, kind of motivate the conference chair to make faster decisions, communicate that out, because I agreed with her that it was late for these decisions to be coming out. So I went back to my office. I sent this email to the program chair as well as several board members who are involved with conference planning. And I asked what was going on. Why was there this delay, that people needed to make plans, and was very direct about the problems that I had talked with my colleague about. Well, one of the board members who I had included in this email, contacted me immediately and said that this email I had just written to the conference chair and the board was inappropriate.
Wow.
It was hurtful, that I publicly humiliated this person by sending such a direct email and public email. The other aspect of this was the organization was international, and the conference chair was from a country outside the US where norms for communication are much more indirect.
I see.
So my email was doubly offensive on that front.
Were you taken aback by this feedback? Because did you feel like I had done nothing offensive and you were surprised by the reaction?
I didn't think of it at the time when I sent the email, how this could be embarrassing or hurtful, because I didn't think I necessarily communicated in that way. But after the fact, when it was brought to my attention, I realized how, because there's other people included on the email and it was such a direct statement of the problem, that it could certainly be taken that way. And so I felt bad about that afterwards.
It wasn't just that Tea's forthright style was seen as rude. There seemed to be a fundamental mismatch between her method of communicating and that of her colleagues. She sometimes felt others were sugarcoating things to her or withholding critical information. When she became president of the International Association for Conflict Management, she got the sense that some people were not saying what they really thought.
When I was president of this organization, we developed and implemented several policy changes to improve our governance. And one of the changes we were working on required a vote from the membership. And there was a period for people to provide feedback or suggestions. And so we didn't receive too much feedback during that comment period. The amendment passed overwhelming support. However, later I came to find out that there were a few people who had concerns about the changes and voted against it. They never shared those reasons with me or others on the board. And to this day, I don't really know what their concerns were. And so I feel like this situation damaged some of the trust I had for them because I didn't know where they stood. And I wasn't able to rely on them to tell me their thoughts or ideas they had. And so if they had communicated their concerns with me or with others on the board, we may have been able to revise the policies to incorporate those ideas, to make them better, or at least discuss them to give them some context or explanation for why we were implementing these changes. So this experience highlighted to me some of the challenges to receiving feedback, serving in a leadership role. It's difficult to know what concerns people have because there's often this unwillingness to communicate critical information or feedback upwards.
Mm-hmm. There's some irony here that this is the International Association for Conflict Management. In some ways, this.
Yes, the irony is not lost on me either.
Tea's experience is hardly unique. At organizations big and small around the world, within families and in interpersonal settings, people have different views about how bluntly they can speak and how bluntly they want others to speak to them. Most of us have struggled with this quandary. Is it better to be honest and to share exactly what is on our minds? Or is it better to be nice, to pull our punches for the sake of protecting people's feelings? When we come back, research insights into this dilemma and how to resolve it. You're listening to Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedanta. This is Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. Psychologist Tea Cohen has noticed in her own life that her forthright manner of speaking sometimes comes across as rudeness. And she has also noticed that other people can often be elliptical or opaque instead of just saying what is on their minds. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that difficult and awkward conversations provide a window into human nature. They reveal a fault line in the way our minds work. She eventually came to see that people don't always avoid difficult conversations because they are cowards. They avoid saying what they really think because they feel torn between two powerful moral imperatives.
So I think of this dilemma between benevolence and honesty, where we often think we have to trade off between these two values, that we have to be kind and offer false hope or encouragement or praise versus brutal honesty. I mean, that term brutal honesty suggests that honesty has to be hurtful. And I don't think that necessarily has to be the case.
So your research has found that the fears people have around being honest lead them to make some predictable mistakes and missteps in conversations. And one such mistake is to be overly positive in the way they communicate negative feedback. Talk about this idea, Taya. How does this happen?
So we often overestimate the magnitude of harm of our honest conversations, that we focus a lot on the immediate emotions of ourselves, of the other person, and we neglect to consider how helpful and useful the honest information could be. So this can happen in performance reviews where the communication might be indirect or involve more praise, or they omit information. Sometimes people use a feedback sandwich, which is a technique where people provide some positive information and they try and quickly bury some negative information in the middle and then sort of end with more positive information. And that can lead to feedback recipients being really confused and not fully understanding the source of the problem or how they might be able to improve because of it.
And in fact, I understand there's been some research that suggests that sometimes supervisors are especially prone to give positive feedback to poor performers because they're worried that the poor performers will like them less if they give them honest feedback.
Yes, they kind of focus on not hurting the feelings of these people. And what they're neglecting to consider is that by failing to provide them with the information that they need, that's actually causing further harm to the poor performers, because now the poor performers don't have an opportunity to learn what they're doing wrong, and there's not necessarily support for them to develop if they don't know what the problem is.
Another problematic strategy we engage in is called paltering. What does this mean, Taya? What is paltering?
Paltering is using truthful statements to mislead others. And so this happens sometimes in negotiation where, maybe someone's asked a question that they don't want to answer. And so they'll say something that's technically true, but intended to give rise to a misimpression in the other person. Imagine you are looking to buy a car and you ask the seller if the car's in good shape, how is it working? And they say, well, there's a brand new transmission, which is true, but the way they've answered it is designed to lead you away from asking questions about the engine, which is having problems.
So give me an example in an organizational setting where one person is giving feedback to another. How would paltering work, do you think?
Someone asks for feedback on their presentation, and the feedback provider truthfully tells them that they thought the colors in their slides were great, and that they, had great graphics. They're providing praise, essentially, and it's true. But if they're using that to mislead or give rise to the impression that they thought the presentation was wonderful, if that's not what they believe to be true, then that could be an example of paltering, or at least an example of failing to communicate honestly. I'd say another example, maybe besides the feedback directly, is when you think of job interviews, because people, when they're in these situations, want to make a positive impression, and they may truthfully point out certain skills, certain relevant experiences, similarities they might have with the person interviewing them, but strategically omit certain information or strategically move the conversation away from any areas that might suggest a lack of fit or a lack of relevant skills. So paltering goes along with these other kinds of communication tactics where people are trying to be honest in some ways, not make false statements or lie, but at the same time, they're not fostering understanding of the truth.
Yeah, you're sort of telling the truth, but not telling the whole truth, basically.
Exactly.
A third kind of misstep or error we make is just avoidance. We simply avoid difficult conversations altogether. Can you talk about this? I feel this must happen all the time in organizational settings, family settings, interpersonal settings. Has this ever happened to you, Taya? Have you ever shirked from having a difficult conversation and avoided it altogether?
I'm not one for avoidance, I would say. So that's, I think for me, the challenge is more on figuring out how to incorporate the benevolence and kindness into the honesty and directness, and also understanding when avoidance might be a good strategy, when certain things might be better left unsaid. And so trying to figure out what really will help the person or our relationship. Honesty is going to be important and the best strategy when there's useful information, when that could help the person. And it's going to be particularly damaging when people avoid conversations or don't communicate honestly when that information could be helpful. But there's some situations where it may be better to not share everything you're thinking, or certainly not sharing it in certain moments when it might not be appropriate to do so.
Mm-hmm. So you would argue in some ways telling your mom that the dress she was wearing was not quite right allows her to go in and change her dress. But if you commented, on some aspect of her appearance that she couldn't change, that might still be honest feedback, but it might not be particularly useful.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that would be harmful and damaging. Giving people feedback about things they can't change, either because they can't change in that moment. 5 minutes before someone's presentation at work, you don't tell them that it's awful and there's nothing they can do about it. But if there's a day or more, where they can still make changes, that's when the honesty is helpful. Same thing with, clothes people are wearing or appearance or other things along those lines. If there's nothing a person can do about it, then, best not to raise it, at least then.
Now, we do all of these things. So we lie, we mislead, we palter, we avoid, because we're sure that things will fall apart if we tell the truth. And in some ways, popular culture backs us up. In the movie Liar, Liar, a lawyer undergoes a transformation where he is compelled to tell the truth at all times. I want you to listen to this clip, Taya.
Mr. Allen, you remember Fletcher Reed?
Oh, yes. Nice to see you again, Fletcher. I've been hearing some good things about you.
Well, Fletcher has just been telling me how much he thinks of you. Well, why don't you tell Mr. Allen?
He's a pedantic, pontificating, pretentious bastard, a belligerent old fart, a worthless, steaming pile of cow dung. Figuratively speaking.
So in the movie, Jim Carrey's life does fall apart when he starts blurting out the truth to everyone. Now, Taya, you recently conducted a study in which you had volunteers speak their minds, but perhaps without the same cruelty as Jim Carrey did. Tell me about the instructions you gave your volunteers.
The first study that I worked on in this area is with Professor Emma Levine, who is now at University of Chicago. And this one, she was a doctoral student at University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and we ran a study in Philadelphia that we called the Challenging Exercise Study. And we said throughout the next 3 days, be honest in every conversation you have with every person you talk to. Really try to be completely candid and open when you're sharing your thoughts, feelings, opinions with others. It may be difficult, but try your best to be honest. And before we had people go out into the world and be honest in all their conversations, we had them predict what they thought this would be like.
Right. What did they say?
Overall, people thought this was going to be a pretty terrible experience, going to be unenjoyable, going to damage my social relationships, be harmful. Overall, people thought this was going to be a pretty unpleasant experience. What happened was the exact opposite. It was much more enjoyable than people anticipated, that it was helpful for the relationships, created a strong social connection, and people were reasonably accurate on how liberating or meaningful the experience was. But overall, it was surprising to the participants in the study, and it was surprising to us as well, because when we planned the study, we weren't expecting such a dramatic, positive impact of honesty.
The responses, which we asked voice actors to read for us, reveal the extent to which honest feedback can change the trajectory of a relationship.
One memorable example was a woman who broke up with her boyfriend over the course of the study.
Oh my gosh.
But she was feeling so relieved by it because she'd been putting off having this difficult conversation. And she wrote that
it affected my relationship with my boyfriend. I told him the truth about how I felt sometimes, which led to our breakup.
Even though this was hard, she was so happy to be able to finally do this. And it highlighted to us how even when we have these difficult conversations where things, don't always work out well, that she was still grateful for the experience because it was something that needed to happen. Another person shared,
I felt less fake when I didn't have to lie about what I thought about some things or say I felt fine when I didn't. Tension was really building up with my roommate because I couldn't bring myself to tell her the things she was doing that were annoying. And while doing this study, I told her all those things I'd been avoiding to tell her for a long while. And it felt kind of liberating. Some of the things were kind of awkward, but others felt good, and it did help ease some of the tension. I learned that it feels better to say those things instead of keeping them inside until it explodes.
The results of Tea's study were just as dramatic when volunteers gave honest feedback in the workplace.
One person shared,
I was particularly surprised when being honest got me further in my position in an organization because voicing my honest opinion made others think about the situation more and come to the conclusion that I was thinking as well.
Another person shared,
people reacted differently than what I thought. They liked and appreciated the honesty, and honestly, I did not believe that was going to happen. It was refreshing, meaning that I was happy to talk about what was on my mind and not worry about what was said.
In other words, the volunteers reported that their relationships not only endured the 72 hours they spent being honest with others, they thrived.
We asked people whether they appreciated the experience, the long-term benefits 2 weeks later, the harm, the relational improvements. And in all these areas, people said the experience helped their relationships and their well-being. One thing that was interesting was that we had a similar condition, a parallel condition in the study where rather than asking people to be honest for 3 days, we asked them to be kind and prioritize kindness. In the case of kindness, people thought that would be a pretty good experience, and it turned out it was. But with honesty, people anticipated that it would not be great for the relationships, but in fact it was. And they said it was even more positive than those for whom we asked to be kind in all their communications.
So I understand that you followed up this study with another one where you asked volunteers to come into a lab with one of their close partners. What were you trying to do in this study, and walk me through what happened?
So one of the limitations of the first study was we didn't know exactly what people spoke about or the conversations, how they unfolded, who they were communicating with. So we wanted to then move on to a controlled study in a laboratory setting where we could have people write out in advance what they were going to say and then sort of read those responses and then record the interactions. And so we ran several follow-up studies after the initial ones where we had pairs of adults come into the lab and we had them anticipate what it would be like to have an honest feedback conversation. And then we had them have the conversation.
And so you actually had people have these conversations while you were present in the lab?
Yes, they had to provide one piece of critical feedback to the person they came to the lab with. We asked them to share their honest opinions, feelings, reactions about one thing you think this person should do differently, change about themselves, or improve upon. And that they would have to read their message aloud and engage in a conversation with their partner about it.
I'm imagining that people had significant anxiety about doing something like this.
Yes, when we asked them to predict what this would be like, they didn't think this would be particularly enjoyable. They didn't think this would be
great for the relationship, and they anticipated that their friend or their partner would react negatively to it.
The feedback the volunteers shared with their partners ranged from the routine to the remarkable.
You need to clean the apartment more. You also need to be more logical and efficient with problems that come up.
I think you can work on being more prepared and more punctual to avoid situations like today.
When you make a commitment, you should figure out how to get yourself ready to follow through on that commitment.
I think you should work on your impulse reactions and responses. When you're frustrated or annoyed, sometimes your comments are blunt and accusational and are less productive.
I think one thing you could improve on is your empathy and sympathy. I think sometimes you get caught up in how you feel, but it's also important to really think about other people's intentions.
Wow, so these were fairly direct. I mean, these are the kinds of things that people might hesitate to talk about in general, Tia. So it's quite amazing that people were so direct with one another.
Yes, I definitely don't think people would have had these conversations in this way unprompted. But similar to the first study where people were honest in all their conversations, in this one, people anticipated that the person that they were communicating with was going to react negatively, and the person themselves did not, both according to how they evaluated themselves and how the communicator experienced it as well.
And did you find again here that people felt closer to one another as a result of having expressed their thoughts honestly?
Yes, the strong sense of social connection that it brought people together and did not drive them apart in the way that they expected.
Why do you think that's happening? Why do you think that having these honest conversations or blunt conversations or forthright conversations, depending on your choice of words, why do you think these were actually increasing the intimacy between people?
I think it's because during these conversations, it was clear that the person they came to the study with really did care about them. And even if that person was communicating bluntly or saying things directly, they were still providing them with feedback that could ultimately help them.
Over time, Tia came to see the question was not really about whether it was better to be honest or better to be kind. It was possible to be both at the same time. She started to evaluate communication strategies that could allow people to honor both moral imperatives simultaneously. When we come back, 3 principles to keep in mind when you are debating whether to give someone difficult feedback. You're listening to Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. This is Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. In daily life, all of us confront a problem in our interactions. How blunt should we be in our dealings with others? How forthright do we want others to be with us? At Carnegie Mellon University, psychologist Tia Cohen studies how we can communicate more effectively without sacrificing either honesty or kindness. Tia, one of the things that I took away from the experiments that you conducted, perhaps one of the more striking things, is not just that people were wrong in anticipating that these conversations would be very difficult when they gave, difficult feedback to people, but that the people receiving the feedback were often, if not enthusiastic, at least willing to accept the feedback. Can you talk a little bit about this idea, how many of us underestimate how hungry others are for feedback, including negative feedback?
Yes, we underestimate others' desire for constructive feedback. As feedback givers, we think a lot about the person's reaction, how they're going to respond, and whether the person sort of will want this feedback or not. And we're often wrong about how much the other person would want to know.
Think of this as technique number 1 in having difficult conversations. When you feel you want to communicate something tough to someone else, and you hear a voice inside your head telling you the other person won't want to hear your criticism, remind yourself that most feedback recipients want critical feedback, even if it makes them unhappy. That's because, even more than wanting to avoid unpleasant news, most of us instinctively understand that unpleasant news can be useful. It isn't fun to receive a bad grade on a school paper or to hear that your outfit isn't quite working. But most people would say that given the choice, they'd prefer to know about the problem. Elaine in the TV show Seinfeld may not be happy to hear that everyone thinks she is a bad dancer, but that doesn't mean she doesn't want to know how others really see her.
That bad?
Have you ever seen yourself?
I think one big reason people don't communicate honestly is because they focus on this social harm and the negative emotions, and that leads them to neglect to think about all of these benefits that could be provided and just how much the other person might want to learn from them and might need that information.
So another way to not see honesty and benevolence in conflict with each other is to remember that although tough feedback might be painful in the moment, the benefits show up in the long run. Talk about this tension between the short-term and long-term benefits of honesty.
So the long-term benefits of feedback is that the person could improve. And that's often in the future. Whereas in the present, what is happening in these conversations is often the provision of some kind of negative or critical information. And we have an easier time seeing and thinking about what's happening immediately in front of us, the short-term awkwardness or difficulty of the interaction, and the more abstract, longer-term benefits are more out of view.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's also the case that when we give feedback to others, the unpleasantness of the conversation of offering negative feedback is something that we experience in the moment. The benefits of that feedback is something that the other person might experience over the long term. Could this be another reason in some ways why we might be hesitant to share feedback? Because in some ways, the benefits of that feedback really accrue to the other person. The consequences of that feedback often accrue to us.
Yes, I think that's part of it as well. I think the positive consequences can accrue to us when the feedback receiver tells us that what we shared helped them, but sometimes that's not shared, or if it's shared, it's far in the future, and we may not know just how much the comments we made or the feedback we provided helped them.
Think of this as technique number 2. Remind yourself that even if you happen to be talking to someone who doesn't want to receive negative feedback, there are long-term benefits that could outweigh the short-term costs. Most of us do this instinctively with our children or with elderly parents and grandparents. We realize that sometimes we need to be the bearers of bad news because it's going to have long-term benefits. In fact, we are not honest with the people we love because we dislike them. We are honest precisely because we love them. But if the first 2 techniques are about managing the feelings inside our own heads as givers of feedback, the next technique is to think carefully about the feelings of the feedback recipient. It's not enough for you to know that you are offering feedback because you care about the other person. You need to make that explicit.
I think it's critical that the feedback recipient feels supported, meaning that they feel like the other person cares about them, that they feel like they can change, that they can grow. And by communicating your benevolent intentions that you care about the person and that the reason you're telling them these potentially negative things about their behavior is to help them, that engenders receptivity. And if the person is then receptive to it, then they can really listen and hear what you're saying and then learn from the interaction. However, where people go wrong, where feedback givers go wrong, is they think, well, the way to make the person receptive is to simply tell them nice things or praise them, general positive statements. And I think that is very different than conveying support and responsiveness to the person you're giving feedback to.
I understand that research has suggested that expressing benevolent intentions might be especially important when the relationship is one that could be corroded by mistrust. For example, a relationship between a white teacher and a black student. Can you tell us about research along these lines carried out by the psychologist David Yeager and his colleagues?
Yes, they've developed an intervention they call wise feedback, and they're highlighting this importance of support rather than praise. And this team of researchers has done some work with children in schools where they've changed how critical feedback is framed, and specifically reframing it to highlight that the feedback giver has very high expectations, and that they believe that the feedback recipient can meet those expectations. So they've used comments like, I'm giving you these comments because I have very high expectations and I know that you can reach them. And they found this is particularly affected for groups of students who may not have a lot of trust in their teachers or the schools, or who may not feel supported in other ways. And I think it relates to this idea of being receptive to the feedback, because it's become clear why the feedback giver is providing those comments. And also it's removing these barriers to receptivity, because they're not defensive, because it's not as much of a threat.
So in other words, if I'm giving feedback, instead of saying, do X or do Y, it might be important to preface that by saying, I really think that you are capable of doing X and Y, and here are my suggestions on how you can reach those high targets.
Yes. Highlighting that you believe they're capable of reaching them, that the goal of you providing feedback is to help the feedback recipient reach their goals, and that you're responsive to their needs and what they're looking for.
It's striking as we're talking, I'm seeing how subtle these conversations need to be. I think many of us rush into feedback conversations either, doing the things we discussed earlier, we, avoid, or we palter, or we mislead, or we offer unnecessary praise, or we just sort of blunder in and just sort of say everything that's on our minds. And I think really the picture that you're painting here is a picture that requires a fair amount of time and nuance and patience in order to communicate feedback both honestly, effectively, but also benevolently.
Yes, and it can be very challenging when our time is limited, when we have lots of different obligations. And so sometimes we just have a quick conversation, and we say things, the other side doesn't fully understand the context of it, or we don't fully communicate that the reason we're giving these comments is for them to improve. And so a lot of problems, I think, can arise when we are communicating quickly or without thinking through how to best incorporate the support that's needed to provide the feedback along with the honesty. And so that can lead us to just avoid having these conversations altogether because they're hard.
I'm wondering if this has happened to you, Tia. Have you had, situations where you're in a rush and someone's asking you for feedback, either professionally or personally, and in some ways the constraint of time makes it actually difficult to provide feedback with the nuance that is required?
Yeah, so I certainly struggle with this when providing feedback over email. And I find it's much easier for me to communicate kindness and support and tact and other things when it's accompanied by a face-to-face conversation or on the phone as opposed to just written. So I will find myself kind of sending short emails, change this, do this, whether it's to my doctoral students or others I work with. And I'm hoping they recognize that it's just about, ways I think we can improve our work together. But I think it's also important to recognize that I don't know, the person receiving that email, when it's just a simple, short, terse email, are they understanding, that I have benevolent intentions toward them, that I really believe they can make things better and it's not an attack on their work.
Yeah, and especially in sort of these very terse communications, you're stripping out a lot of the human elements, and we need to do that. We need to sort of use these technologies in the interest of efficiency in professional situations especially. But I can see how easily you can strip out sort of the human element of this and sort of convey the wrong impression.
Right, and because misunderstandings are likely to arise when we're communicating only in a written format, when we lose a lot of information about the tone, about the context of the comments, and increasingly as we do more of our work over email, I think this is something to keep in mind, that especially when providing feedback, it can be difficult to do when it's only in written format, when it's not accompanied by a conversation.
So we talked earlier about how people from different cultures and different countries might have different notions of what's appropriate in conversations. In the example you gave me earlier, where you wrote to the chair of the conference, I believe, this was someone from another country, and there could have been a misunderstanding here because, in fact, you had different, background norms of how honest and forthright you were supposed to be in conversations. I'm wondering how you navigate that divide when we're communicating across cultures or with people from different countries. How does the same advice to both be benevolent and to be honest, how does that work? Can't we run into problems where other people have very different scales in terms of how much honesty and how much benevolence they expect?
One thing I've learned in doing research on honesty is that there's a difference between being honest and being direct. And I think all cultures throughout the world value, to a high degree, they value honesty and benevolence, right? These are values. Maybe there's some variation. But where we see a lot of cultural differences is around directness in communication. And it is certainly possible to be honest while still communicating somewhat indirectly. But what can happen in those situations, especially if people are from different cultures where they're not aware of all the cues and they're not necessarily understanding one another, is misunderstandings can arise because the parties didn't understand the indirect cues that people were using to communicate that information. And so I think we can differentiate the content of the communication, whether it is truthful or not. And that's when I think of honesty, it's along those lines often, but from the way in which the information is communicated. And the communicator has a responsibility to communicate in a way that the recipient understands. And when people are communicating across cultures or communicating in ways that are more indirect, that can be challenging.
I recently came by this website. It was a satirical website that looked at the way people in Britain and people in America use English, and it had sort of a translator which basically said this is what it means when British people say X, and this is what they actually mean. And one of the things it says is when British people say quite good, what they really mean is that this is not good. And when they say with the greatest respect, what they really mean is what you're saying is idiotic. So there are differences between cultures in how direct people are willing to be, even when they're expressing honest feedback.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. I think one common example that my students sometimes share when I teach about negotiations is, when you are communicating with people in other cultures and you say, well, will this be done on time? And sometimes people might say, oh, yeah, sure, yes, knowing full well the answer is no, but they wouldn't want to say no because that might communicate a lack of respect, right? Because they're trying to communicate that benevolence, and they wouldn't want to disrespect others, and they assume that the other person should know that the answer they're giving is not true, and lots of misunderstandings arise because the one side is saying, look, you should understand what I really meant by that response.
Right.
And then the other side is saying, well, you told me you would get this done or that you would respond to this. And, so we're trying to understand what do these words really mean? And you can easily see how both sides of that could feel they were being honest while thinking the other side was not.
After spending years researching the psychology of unpleasant feedback, Taya once found herself in the kind of situation she often sets up for volunteers in her experiments. She was confronting the possibility of a difficult conversation. All the usual concerns that her volunteers had now sprang to her mind.
So this was a recent experience where a colleague who I didn't know very well had reached out to me about potentially collaborating. He had some ideas, and we'd had an initial call, and then he sent me the paper. And going into this meeting, I was feeling like it was going to be awful, right? All the things I kind of had talked about in my research where people think these honest conversations could go really badly, because I had some critical thoughts about the paper, things I thought that could be changed or needed to be changed, reframing, things that didn't make sense to me, major work would be needed. And so I didn't know this person very well. So I wasn't sure just how direct should I be? How much should I communicate? Maybe this isn't what the person wanted. Maybe they just, but he'd asked for my feedback, and I, really value honesty. So I figured if the person was asking for my feedback or advice, then I would provide it to him. So going in, I was thinking this was going to be a difficult conversation and unpleasant. I wasn't sure how I should handle it, but I communicated directly about the problems I saw. I think during the conversation was much better than in my written comments at conveying how I thought there was the seed of something interesting. And then if we made these changes, reframed, then the good ideas could come through better. And so what happened, rather than him being defensive or upset, he responded like, wow, this is exactly what I was looking for. This is so helpful. Yes, I can see that, thank you. I wasn't aware of that, but now that you say that, I can see these problems, this is really helpful. And it went from the situation where I thought it was going to be terrible or could be terrible. And it ended up being a great experience. And at least what he told me during our call was how helpful it was. And afterwards, it strengthened my relationship, it helped him, and it was much more enjoyable than I had anticipated.
Taya Cohen is a psychologist at Carnegie Mellon University. Taya, thank you for joining me today on Hidden Brain.
Thank you.
Hidden Brain is produced by Hidden Brain Media. Our audio production team includes Bridget McCarthy, Annie Murphy-Paul, Kristen Wong, Laura Querelle, Ryan Katz, Autumn Barnes, and Andrew Chadwick. Tara Boyle is our executive producer. I'm Hidden Brain's executive editor. Special thanks this week to voice actors Taylor Wingfield and Pedro Feitosa. For today's Unsung Hero, we bring you a story from our sister show, My Unsung Hero. Our story comes from John Moe. In the early 90s, John moved to Seattle to follow his dream of becoming a writer or an actor. Instead, he found himself working full-time in customer service at a software company.
So I was working at a company called WRQ. It doesn't exist anymore. And it was very detailed, very dry. It wasn't anything fun. But I had undiagnosed, I'd been dealing with depression for a long time by then. So I just had this inherent belief that other people got to do the cool things, and I had to go get a job that I hated and work there till I died. I had gotten to know somebody in HR, one of the recruiting people in HR, because previous to that, I had worked in a temp agency assigning temps, and we had sent temps to this place. So I knew the HR department a little bit. And to get away from my desk, I just, would go for walks around the building, stopped in to see Jane, this woman in HR, and I'd just say, hey, how's it going? Just poking in, saying hi like you do. And she said, oh, well, I'm glad to see you. I was thinking about you. She said, you remember my husband, Ryan? And I had given Ryan a temp job. She said, Ryan's at Amazon now, and they've got some jobs. They have a job coming up that requires somebody who's really creative. And she knew some of the other work I was doing on the side and the theater stuff and the comedy stuff. And I said, oh, okay. So you want to know if I can think of anybody creative? And she's like, no, I mean you. And I said, well, I don't know. I have a job here. And she said, you don't belong here, which is a hell of a thing to hear someone in HR say at your company. She said, you're meant for something other than this. You're meant to do something else. You should be making your living being creative. And to me, it felt like I had been playing pickup basketball at the YMCA, and somebody said, you should play for the Chicago Bulls. It was that ridiculous an idea. I think when someone has no confidence, when someone's beaten themselves down over so many years, which is often the case with depression, that one little thing can make such a difference. And I'm welling up right now because somebody had seen something in me that I hadn't seen in myself. Now I host a show that is very personal. It's about mental health, and I go around the country giving speeches on mental health. I wrote a book called The Hilarious World of Depression about my experiences with comedy and mental illness. And all of the stuff that I do requires confidence that what I have to say is worth an audience's time, that I should be doing this, that I'm somebody you should listen to. And so I think Jane at WRQ gave me the ladder to get to that height of confidence that I need to do all the work that I do today and to help the people I'm able to help. And so now, when I can tell somebody's really good at something and isn't giving themselves credit for it, I've done this with writers who are much less experienced than me. I try to tell them, you're a very good writer, or you're an excellent reporter, because maybe they haven't been told that enough times. And that confidence from hearing somebody say that, and I can always tell when I say that, when it's received and goes all the way to their heart, that's going to give them the confidence to get to the next level. And so that they can get to that point and they can tell somebody else that at some later point. You have this in you. You can do this.
John Moe of St. Paul, Minnesota. He's the host of the podcast, Depresh Mode. If you enjoy the insights and ideas we feature on Hidden Brain and would like to support our work, please consider becoming a member of our podcast subscription, Hidden Brain Plus. You can find Hidden Brain Plus on the Apple Podcasts app or at apple.co/Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. See you soon. This is Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. In 1974, the singer Harry Chapin hit #1 on the Billboard charts with a song about loss and love. It told the story of a dad who missed his son's first steps.
A child arrived just the other day. He came to the world in the usual way, but there were planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away, and he was talking for I knew it, and as he grew, he'd say, I'm gonna be...
The father misses other milestones. Games of catch get postponed. And before he knows it, an entire childhood whizzes by as work and other commitments keep the father from spending time with his son.
When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then.
The song Cats in the Cradle was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2011. In a few memorable verses, it told the story of a life where your choices come full circle.
I've long since retired, my son's moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said, I'd like to see you if you don't mind. He said, I'd love to, Dad, if I can find the time.
The enduring popularity of Cats in the Cradle reflects a sad truth. We often take the most meaningful parts of our lives for granted, only to realize what we have lost after it's too late. Many philosophical and spiritual traditions counsel people to express gratitude for the good things in their lives and to engage fully with the present. So why do so many of us have trouble slowing down and savoring life? This week on Hidden Brain, we begin a 2-part series about why it's so hard to stop and notice what is wonderful about our lives and powerful psychological techniques to help us master this art. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. It's a quote widely attributed to John Lennon, but the origins of this idea predate the Beatles by centuries. At Loyola University, Chicago, psychologist Fred Bryant studies this universal human conundrum and what we can do about it. Fred Bryant, welcome to Hidden Brain.
Thank you, Shankar. It's a pleasure to be here.
I want to take you back, Fred, to the early days of your career. You had 2 small kids, but you were also really consumed with your research and teaching responsibilities. Did you ever feel like these were in conflict with each other?
Yes, I did. I remember sitting in a school auditorium with lots of proud parents, seeing my daughter come on stage. She was an exquisite flute player. And the lights went down, the music began. It was fun to watch her. But I began to look at my watch, think about how many more songs would be played, and how much more time, and thinking about the section that I might work on when I got back to my manuscripts. And so I would not be fully present. And I found it a sense of frustration because I could not be in 2 places at once.
I understand your wife sometimes called you the ghost in the house?
Yes. That was her term for me, the ghost in the house. I'd be like a ship passing in the night, going down to the basement where my work would take place. I could be relatively isolated from noise and distraction. It wasn't a pleasant thought to realize that was her term for me. I wanted to be present in the house, but be more than a ghost. And yet I felt driven to be productive, to take advantage of opportunities whenever they arose. And I was multitasking constantly, working on multiple projects. And yet there was guilt. And when I would be working on my work, I would often be thinking of what I might be doing with my daughters and with my wife.
So eventually your daughters grew up, and a few years ago, your elder daughter got married. Tell me how you and your wife planned the wedding and what the wedding day was like.
We enjoyed the time that we set aside to do that. So many loose ends that had to be taken care of, so many preparations, the catering, the flowers, the music DJ, the guest list, all of the planning for the venue, visiting different venues. And we thought, well, once this event arrives, the glorious wedding day, then we will be able to let go and just enjoy this. And I remember walking into the place thinking this was going to be the celebration and the time to relax and enjoy, but we had too many other loose ends, things that weren't where we thought they would be. The DJ was running late. The food wasn't where we wanted it. There were too many ongoing dynamic parts. We found just waiting for the next problem to arise. And so we realized we could not let go. We could not really immerse ourselves in the moment, and it ended up being very frustrating for us.
I'd like to ask you about one other personal story. I understand that you're a committed mountain climber who often goes on climbing expeditions with friends. Are you more laid back when it comes to these recreational outings, or are you still the planner?
Always, once and always, the planner. My friends are more in the moment, and they let me plan it because I look forward to imagining how it could be and trying to optimize the moment. Everything has to be planned down to the minute. We would typically try to climb 5 or 6 of these 14,000-foot peaks in a single trip. We might have 10 days, might have a week. How to do that and what order to do these things. I have a vast library of guidebooks and resources, maps, things that allow me to figure out what we're going to confront if the weather gets bad, or if we lose something, or supplies run out, all of the equipment we'd need. Not only that, how we'd spend the mornings, the afternoons, the evenings, coordinating the flights, the hotel reservations, the rental car. It fell upon me to take that role and that responsibility.
I'm wondering, during these trips, was there ever a moment that you can recall when maybe you'd climb to the top of one of these peaks and it had been a hard and exhausting climb, and you didn't give yourself the time to actually enjoy what this achievement felt like?
Yes. I feel like the school principal telling them to come in from the playground. It's time to get back to the hard work. And I knew how much time we could afford to spend if we wanted to stay on schedule. They would want to linger, perhaps spend an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours on the summit. I knew that that would not allow us enough time to get back down. The other problem was that the weather is the main danger and the main concern. Up that high, the higher up you are, the more rapidly the weather changes. I would always be worried about that. They call me the worry wart because I didn't want us to turn into human lightning rods. So I didn't really allow much time for that spontaneity to happen. My friends resented it, I think. They felt they should be allowed to be spontaneous.
Fred, you say your friends resented your efforts to keep them on schedule, but it occurs to me that you yourself missed out on some sublime moments on the mountaintop.
I'm certain that's the case. I don't think I'd stopped long enough to realize that fact. In a sense, I missed the opportunity to smell the roses when they were there. I think I was driven more by the itinerary than I drove the itinerary.
All of us need to get things done and to stay on track. The more driven we are, the more we can be consumed by deadlines and goals. These can come to dominate our existence. When we come back, why the good things in our lives and the bad things in our lives operate by different rules, and the great mistake we make in dealing with them. You're listening to Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. This is Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. Most of us go through life focused on the things that make us unhappy. We spend time thinking about relationships that are not going well. We stay up at night worrying about setbacks at school and at work. When we are sick, our minds are consumed with our own pain and discomfort. At Loyola University, Chicago, psychologist Fred Bryant has explored a provocative question. If all of us say we want to be happy, why do we focus so much time and energy on the things that make us unhappy? Fred, you've explored the difference between the way we attend to our positive and our negative feelings. Describe what we do.
Well, we tend to spend more time counting our troubles than our blessings. It's almost an inevitable result of evolution. The negative aspects, the threats in the environment and the world around us are dangerous, and they can take our lives if we're not cautious and don't avoid them. Whereas the pleasures are not going to take our lives if we don't attend to them. And the idea really is that the troubles are unavoidable, and they actually kick our door in and come and find us. And we're forced then to deal with them, to handle them. Whereas the pleasures and the joys, they don't hunt us down and force us to enjoy them. They wait, and they sometimes hide. They require us to go hunting for them, to find them and then spend time with them.
This is such an interesting and profound idea, Fred. The idea that sorrows hunt for us, but we have to hunt for joys, that they are not equally found in the wild, so to say.
Yes, it's just that negative information is processed more rapidly. We tend to remember it, retrieve it more readily. We're more influenced by it. We attend to it more. But the positive side is really underestimated. For so many years, the focus in psychology has been on the negative, so that the problem has been relative ignorance with respect to the positive side and managing positive feelings in our lives, taking a kind of active responsibility for them, prioritizing them, structuring time, allowing for that. It's too easy to let the negative swamp our attention and drive our agenda.
You know, it's interesting both when it comes to ourselves as well as to our loved ones. We often coach ourselves and our loved ones on how to deal with adversity. So, parents might teach their children how to ride a bike, and you're saying, here's what you do, and here's how you keep from falling, and if you fall, here's how you can brace your fall, and here's what you. And you're teaching your child to cope with bad things that are that could happen. And of course, that's a good thing to do. But we assume that in some ways there is no coaching or teaching required when it's a good thing. No parent ever sits down a child and says, let me teach you how to eat ice cream and to enjoy ice cream. It almost seems absurd to say that, but we spend so much time coaching ourselves and other people to cope with adversity.
Yes. I mean, we all catch ourselves in that conundrum. You want to help your children handle the struggles of life, to be able to rise above adversity. But you naturally assume somehow that the joys will take care of themselves. That's what struck me initially in my work, was that we'd spent so little time helping people learn how to manage that side of life. It was just taken for granted that the absence of pain and suffering would somehow guarantee the finding of joy. And that is just not the case. One of the great insights that my most influential mentor, Joseph Viroff, taught me was that just because you're not down doesn't mean you're up. That was profound. I always had assumed, as most psychologists in earlier times, that if people were not pressed by adversity, were not struggling, and suffering, that somehow then the natural state, the default status, would be happiness. No, the default is the absence of suffering. It's not happiness. Happiness is really something you have to be on the lookout for.
Is there any evidence that teaching ourselves or teaching others to develop the capacity to cope with adversity also somehow transmutes itself into a capacity to enjoy life?
Very little evidence for that. The two are really separate sets of skills, the capacity to cope and the capacity to find the joy. Many of the things that we would do to help us cope with misfortune and accident, adversity, involve muting, dampening, cutting short the emotional experience. We want the pain to go away. We want the fear to dissipate. We want the anxiety, the worry to vanish. We want to get beyond these things and past them. So we oftentimes tell ourselves not to think about it, not to dwell on it, that this will pass. Now, if you do those kinds of coping strategies when a good thing happens, tell yourself, this is not that good. Try not to think about it. Just figure that we'll be through it soon. It will be gone. Think of other things. Try not to dwell on it. Well, what does that do to the joy? I mean, it more or less kills it. So if that's habitual, if that's our dominant approach mentally and behaviorally to bad things when they happen, it'd be very easy for us to apply those same rules to positive experiences, and we're out of luck. We've actually undermined them.
So you've devoted decades to studying the phenomenon of savoring, and I think we all understand the term, but you say it involves an element of something that psychologists call metacognition. Explain what this means, Fred.
Yes, metacognition is thinking about our own mental states, thinking about our own feelings. Oh, this feels good, or I'm liking this. I haven't felt this way in a while, you might say. It also involves an ability to be aware of one's attentional focus, what it is that one's looking at. Just sitting, for example, in a beautiful garden or strolling through and looking for what comes our way. You'd be aware of every thought, every step. If you're looking at a beautiful flower, what kinds of feelings come to mind? You might smell the flower. What memories come to mind in the aroma? It involves a kind of mindful awareness of one's own positive experiences. And that is the essence of savoring. It is really the capacity to notice and to attend to and to appreciate a positive experience, whether it's coming from outside us or within us.
So in previous episodes of Hidden Brain, we've talked about another important psychological concept, the hedonic treadmill. Something brings us joy, a new car, a new house, a new city. But over time, we get used to the thing that gave us joy, and we might even get bored with it. Researchers have shown that the hedonic treadmill shows up even as people are eating dessert in the course of a single meal. Can you explain what they found and how savoring can affect this process?
Yes, that's a universal phenomenon that's underappreciated. One way to think of it is the fact that the human system, exquisite as it is in sensation, perception, it has its limits over time, and that what initially strikes us as powerfully pleasant or powerfully unpleasant will over time fade. It will drain away, and it has adaptive value, certainly helpful to us to be able to handle unpleasant feelings, pain. For example, you can get used to pain if it becomes chronic. You kind of live with it and don't think about it. And yet it has its drawbacks, this hedonic system, in the fact that we grow used to and accustomed to positive things. And it's inevitable from a physiological point of view that the system seems to be less sensitive over time to the pleasurable stimuli that at first was exquisite. Classic case in point, you go into a bakery and you are bombarded with aromas, the smell of freshly baked bread, chocolate, pastries. Oh, the smell is divine. It's just overwhelming. Within a few minutes, we get used to it, yet we might not even realize it. Someone else will come in the door a few minutes later, and they'll say the aroma, and you'll think, what aroma? And you realize, it's right. You realize that it would take you leaving, walking around the block, clearing the nasal passage, come back in. Hey, there's the aroma again. Where did it go? It was there all the time, but we get used to it. The trouble is we get used to anything when we're surrounded by it. We only really know what we've got when it's gone. So it takes the losing of the thing to fully appreciate what having it is about. And the same thing holds true from a psychological point of view with all of the good things in our lives.
Fred, have people figured out how to halt or at least slow down the hedonic treadmill?
Yes, we've learned over time, but the idea of say, wolfing down a pizza, that it's going to taste better if we can get more of it rapidly, that's counterproductive. If we get a windfall of gifts all at once, don't open them all immediately, spread them over time, the research showed. Far better for us to slow down and to stretch the time and the experience out. That is the number one savoring strategy people adopt when instructed to try to enjoy an experience the most they possibly can. And I've done this work across culture. This is a universal strategy people adopt, is to slow down. They'll spend some time just looking at the bite of chocolate, let's say, or the strawberry. They'll spend time sniffing it, setting it down, maybe licking it, but they're not going to consume it all rapidly. Actually swishing the food around on the palate, closing the eyes to try to intensify the sensations, the taste on the tongue. And that's a very mindful, deliberate process aimed at maintaining the positive experience and prolonging it. Now, you could say if you want more intensity, you would do it as a dog might eat a piece of steak on a plate on the floor, and it's gone before you can sit down. They go for oomph and intensity, whereas human beings say, okay, that would work, but it'd be over, and then where would I be? If you want to smell the roses, you have to slow down. Or if you're going to drive by and roll the windows down and try to smell the roses, that's not going to work. So speed and impatience is really the enemy of enjoyment. The lingering is the secret.
So you've conducted a number of studies looking at the practical effects of engaging in savoring. One of these experiments examined whether savoring makes us happier in our day-to-day lives. Can you describe the study for us, please?
Well, we've done several of such studies to go after research on how people savor on their own when told to go forth and savor. So we had technology that allowed us to contact people randomly between 8 in the morning, 8 at night, on their device, their phone. They would then could write down what they were doing, what they were feeling, and then answer questions about whether they had just been savoring or not, which kinds of savoring were they engaging in, and how their feelings were. So we followed people, a large sample, once a day for 30 days, randomly beeping them and keeping track of their data. What we found was, as we'd expected, when people engaged in savoring in response to a positive event, that resulted in significantly stronger positive emotions immediately afterwards, and then throughout the day. We found that these savoring experiences seemed to magnify and grow over time, and that at the end of the month, people's trajectory was uplifted. The more savoring they'd engaged in the moment, in real life circumstances, the more joy they were feeling, the more positive emotion they were feeling. We also found that savoring had its strongest effects when people had fewer positive events. It was a bit counterintuitive. In other words, that savoring matters most in squeezing the joy from positive moments when you have fewer positive moments to work with. So it's a really important thing to keep in mind. There are many people's circumstances that don't allow them the luxury, the time to savor, or the opportunities. That doesn't mean, though, that they can't get full joy from that. It means that that's where savoring matters most.
You've also found that savoring can help with symptoms related to depression or with people suffering from poor health. Walk me through these findings, Fred.
Yes, with respect to depression, the tendency to experience negative emotion, negative affectivity, actually dampens the ability to savor the moment. It really puts a damper on the capacity to find joy in the moment. And that tends to increase the intensity of depression over time. So one strategy to battle depression is to teach people to find more joy in the moment. Not as easy as it sounds, but it's really one of the goals of cognitive behavioral therapy. So people are actually developing savoring interventions now in working with depressed clients, and it seems to reduce the symptomology. With respect to ill health, we're finding that in chronic disease, life-threatening illnesses, the capacity to savor protects one from depression. The better and stronger one's skills are in savoring, the less likely one is to get depressed over time, and the lower the levels of depression in dealing with chronic life-threatening illness.
So, despite these many benefits of savoring, we often fail to savor the good things in life, and I'd like to explore some of the reasons for this. The first, as you've indicated, is that we're simply too rushed, in some ways as you were when your children were growing up. I mean, that seems to be one of the principal drivers that keeps us from savoring the good things in our lives.
Yes, not only this feeling of being rushed and the time is short, but also the tendency to compare our experience to what we thought it would be, or what we hoped it would be, or what we think it should have been. We also compare many times what we're experiencing to what others in the same situation seem to be feeling. And that short circuits many of the positive feelings, because we're more interested in analyzing and comparing how we're actually feeling relative to some standard. And that's hardly being in the moment. That's not being here. That's being somewhere else. And hard to be here if you're there.
I understand that your brother George had an interesting relationship with Christmas each year, but some of his strategy didn't quite work when it came to maximizing his own savoring. Tell me that story, Fred.
Yes. He always relished Christmas. Before it occurred, he would start a month or two ahead building it up. He would think it would be the best Christmas we'd ever had in all our lives. And I thought the one before was pretty good. Oh, no, this is going to be far better than anything we could ever imagine. And I thought, really, this sounds great. What are some of the things you think will happen? He said, we're going to get the biggest, best gifts ever. The meal is going to be incredible. There'll be snow. It's going to be magical. Can't wait. And then the night before, there was this huge excitement. But then Christmas morning would come, and we'd rush into the living room to see all this array of gifts, and they never lived up to what he had imagined they'd be. But there was always next Christmas. So he was very good at building up the anticipation and enjoying it beforehand. But in the moment, it inevitably fell far short of what he had hoped for. And he would be grumpy. He would be disappointed and have to leave the room.
So some of this is about the role of expectations. The higher our expectations, the harder it becomes to savor what it is that we have, to enjoy what it is that we have, because the contrast is a downward contrast. But it's also an example of perhaps killjoy thinking. You know, something wonderful is happening, you're getting something great, but rather than focusing on what's great, your mind is occupied by the ways it falls short.
Yes, you're thinking to yourself, this should have happened sooner, or it could have been better in these ways. Or you're thinking, I should be doing something else. You know, I've got other things to do, or I don't deserve this. So the killjoy thoughts really short-circuit the enjoyment of the moment, and they can become an automatic.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.
Script that we play in our heads in response to positive events.
I want to play you a clip of music, Fred, that was part of a study conducted by the psychologist Jonathan Schooler and his colleagues. Here's a clip from a very famous piece of music. So Jonathan Schooler played this work, Rite of Spring, written by the composer Igor Stravinsky, for volunteers, and he had different groups listen to the music differently. Explain what he did and what he found, Fred.
He asked one group simply to listen to the passage, the musical passage, and the second group was asked to reflect upon how they felt while they were listening to this passage. They were to turn a dial to the right if their feelings became increasingly positive, or they were to turn the dial back if the feelings were decreasing. And during this time, people were instructed to really keep track of how they were feeling, to evaluate their feelings. Now, he found that the group that listened to the passage while evaluating their feelings, that group ended up at a lower level of enjoyment than a group that simply was asked how they felt after listening to the song with no self-evaluation. So the very act of continually, in real time, monitoring the positive feelings ended up undermining the final level of enjoyment. It's almost as if you pay a price for too much self-reflection.
I'm wondering, Fred, if this is at odds with what you told me earlier when we talked about the role of metacognition and that savoring is not just simply enjoying something, but being aware that you're enjoying something, taking note of it. Is that idea at odds with the idea in this study, which is that the more you pay attention to the things that you are enjoying, the less you enjoy it?
Very good, Shankar. That is one of the paradoxes of savoring. The irony is that in order to savor, you have to be aware of the positive feelings. You have to tell yourself, oh, I like this, I'm feeling good, this is wonderful. The trouble is, in the Schooler study, people stayed in that evaluative frame of mind. They kept asking themselves, how much am I enjoying it? Am I still enjoying it? Am I happy yet? Am I still happy? Maybe not. You can see that takes you away from the very positive stimulus that you started with. So the idea is to dance back and forth. It's to waltz, to tango with the positive feelings. You do need to be aware of them. You need to name them, to wallow in them. Ah, here it is. Listen to the strings in this musical passage. Listen to the counterpoint from the brass section. They must have worked for hours on this. How many people are playing? How amazing humans are to have created these things. And then lose yourself in the moment. Let go of the evaluations and the judgments. And you can't spend too much time in either one of those reflective or absorption frames of mind.
Savoring can bring us happiness, shield us from depression, and make us more resilient in the face of adversity. But a variety of hidden barriers keep us from doing it. One of the most important of those barriers is that we fail to see the many different shades of savoring that are available to all of us in daily life. And that's when we come back. You're listening to Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. This is Hidden Brain. I'm Shankar Vedantam. Fred Bryan is a psychologist at Loyola University, Chicago. He is the co-author, with Joseph Vieroff, of the book Savoring, a New Model of Positive Experience. Fred, you say that there are many opportunities for savoring in everyday life that many of us overlook, and becoming aware of all the many types and shades of savoring may be the first step to living a richer and more satisfying life. When you were in the third grade, you got an assignment to get some mushrooms from the forest, and you had a chat with someone in your household who was a master at savoring. Tell me what happened.
Thank you, Shankar, for reminding me of this cherished memory. That was a very early savoring adventure with my mother, Mara Lee. And the assignment was to go out into the forest. Living in the hills of West Virginia, there were forests all around us, and collect mushrooms. And we were to find as many as we could, mount them in some form, make a presentation, an exhibit out of them. So the task was straightforward, but I wasn't sure even how to approach it. It just sounded like drudgery and stress to me. So I mentioned it to my mom, and it was a Saturday morning. She said, let's figure out how we'll do this. These things are waiting for us. They're hiding. Where do you think we'll find them? I said, I don't know. Where might we go? She steered us to a creek that flowed up into the hills behind the end of the street. And I'd not spent a lot of time way back in there. So we decided, she said, let's go up in there. What will we need to take with us? Wow, I don't know. Well, we'll need something to carry them in. What would we want? And so, well, maybe a paper bag. Great idea. Let's take several because we don't know how many we'll need and we don't want to crush them. Maybe we'll find a lot more than we could imagine. Oh, and we want to keep track of where we find them. Where are they hiding? And she had a small spiral notebook with a pencil. Maybe we'd take a snack with us. This started to sound fun. This sounded like we were going to someplace unknown that we were exploring. And I remember making our way there and finding the first one under a fern, way off the path where we'd been. And she came running over, and I was thrilled to be able to show her what I found. We made a few notes about it. We pulled it out of the ground, and we smelled it. We were really drinking in all of the experience. I couldn't wait to see the next one. This must have gone on for, I don't know, an hour or two, finding all sorts of things, wondering how many hundreds and hundreds of mushrooms there were surrounding us that we'd never known, never seen, trying to guess how old they were. And she said, look at how many we have. Can you believe it? Remember when we had none and how much we'd look forward to what we'd find? Here we are. We're here now. Then she talked about, let's go home. What are we going to do when we get home? Let's look forward to it. And then tonight, we're going to look back on this. She showed me this mental time machine that savoring can involve when one uses the mind in that way, the ability to travel back and forth in time. She was showing me how to do this, teaching me how to go about doing this. All of these tricks ended up being one of my favorite things I ever did in grade school.
You know, I love the idea of mental time travel because you call this both prospective and retrospective savoring. And in the little example you gave me about going mushroom hunting with your mom, There's ample evidence of both those things, right? So you're anticipating what you're going to find. You're trying to imagine how wonderful it's going to be. You're trying to think about where you will find these things, and then you find them, and then you celebrate when you find them, and then you look back at the end of the day and you say, do I remember where I found them? And so in some ways, you're trying to extract every last ounce of joy juice, so to say, from the search for mushrooms.
That's it. She was able to find joy ahead of time. And then when we were in the moment, remind herself that these are some of the things we'd look forward to. Building memories to be recalled later. When we got home, we looked over the whole adventure from start to finish, remembered it, and shared it. Part of it was sharing it with her, magnified the savoring, because she would point out to me things she found beautiful. I would also then be encouraged to find little things that I found pleasurable and fun, things she did not see, and it was a delight to see her laugh at what I discovered. I realized later on in my life that was what drove my career studying savoring, 40 years of studying savoring. She certainly understood it, not from research, but from having learned it from her father and then passing it along to me.
Notice that Fred's mother was not doing what Fred's brother did ahead of Christmas. His brother had built up anticipation of Christmas by imagining more presents, better presents, and picture-perfect snowy weather. He then felt disappointed when reality fell short of his expectations. Fred's mother focused on enjoying the ordinary. It was just a school project to find some mushrooms. But by slowing down, Fred's mom showed him that there was wonder to be extracted from the ordinary. At every stage, she preferentially focused on the version of the story that would make them happiest. Before they went out, she asked Fred to imagine finding lots and lots of mushrooms. After they had found a couple, she told him, "Remember how we thought we might find none?" And after they got home, she helped Fred focus on the best parts of the day. In some ways, she was taking advantage of errors in the way the mind works to combat the propensity of the mind to focus on the negative. Fred says research has backed up his mother's insight.
There are some researchers, Mitchell and Thompson, very well known in the happiness literature, who studied vacations, European trips, bicycle trips, asking them to how good they thought it would be beforehand, that prospection. And then in the moment, they asked them to rate how they're feeling and describe the pleasures of the experience. And then afterwards, to look back, rating how good it was. What they found was, as you described, this tendency to look back on things and remember them as having been more pleasant than they were at the time. People are idealizing it. They term that rosy retrospection. The same thing actually held true for the prospection. A thing before it occurs, when you're imagining it, it seems much better than it actually was at the time. Much as my brother would idealize Christmas before it happened, they called that rosy prospection. It's just a human tendency. They analyzed why that would happen. And they found that in the moment, there are all sorts of distractions. There are things that are unpleasant. We don't encode those as memories afterwards. So when you look back, you don't remember that your knee was sore, or you don't remember that the weather was cold, the uncertainties, the little things that were unpleasant or fell short are sloughed off, leaving the gist of it that we can polish like the facets of a diamond. What we're doing is we're savoring the way it makes us feel to remember. It's a subtle distinction, and that's an important one. The savoring isn't just rekindling the exact feelings you had when you look back. It is relishing the way it feels to look back. Again, the savoring is always in the here and now. The feeling now when you look back. The feeling now when you look forward.
You've noticed gender differences between men and women in their capacity to savor things, both in the present and when they're looking retrospectively. What do you find, Fred?
Women report that they're more fully capable of enjoying the moment, of getting as much joy as they think they can from a happy moment, compared to what men say that men themselves are capable of. They seem to be more in touch with the feelings when they're happening. Men sometimes have a harder time identifying the positive feelings in the first place and then lingering with them. It's just a cultural difference, maybe because their dominant coping strategies involve suppressing feelings and denying and avoiding more than women. And women traditionally far more expressive of their positive feelings. Men have traditionally kept their feelings more to themselves, but the price is that you miss the opportunity to augment, to intensify, amplify those feelings. And women tend to spend more time building memories of a positive thing. So they're very skilled at these things, probably because of the richer inner life in association with feelings. Typically, men have a harder time with that. They'll talk about feelings, but they're often not encouraged to do so. Women do a lot more of that than men do.
So you talk about two kinds of savoring, one that is outward focused and one that is more inward focused. The outward focused savoring you call world focused savoring. Can you give me some examples of how this would work?
The world focused savoring is when we notice something outside us that's pleasurable, like the mushrooms I hunted with my mom. It is an exquisite rainbow or a Grand Canyon, some kind of magical sunset that's just out of a movie. In other words, it comes from the outside and hits us hard to create feelings inside. And the savoring process is one of marveling. Luxuriating is another form of savoring that's outward focused. Coming from the outside, you're feeling the warm hot tub on one's body, focusing on the ways those things affect us. But those outer world experiences, world-focused savoring, very different from self-focused savoring, where we're savoring the feelings inside us as opposed to the stimulus outside us. Something like pride and accomplishment, than having finished a task that we've worked hard on or something that means a lot to us. We might relish a feeling of fatigue after a hard day's labor or a great workout. In reality, most savoring experiences are blends of the two. Even a world-focused savoring experience has to get in us with the feelings, and we have to focus on those feelings. So that happiness is not in things, it's in us. It's the feelings that these things create inside us. That's the fuel for the savoring.
You talk about gratitude as being one of the engines for savoring. What does gratitude have to do with savoring?
Gratitude is the ability to pinpoint a gift from an external gift giver. The benefactor could be a friend, it could be a stranger, it could be a deity, it could be a loved one. But this is something outside us, which has blessed us, given us something positive. Unless those realizations hit us and we reflect on that cognitively, there is no gratitude. You hand a very young child a gift, and the parent says, "What do you say?" to their child, and the child says, "This is really good." You say, No, you don't say thank you. The child hasn't really developed the capacity to recognize that this is something for which to give thanks. It's something learned over time.
So you and others have argued that it's more important to have many experiences of savoring as compared to very intense experiences of savoring. Why would this be the case, Fred?
The intensity is fine and good, but that will wear off over time. It's almost as if there's a part of the mind, a hidden part, that keeps score. And there's a tally sheet in some fashion that we have many positive experiences. They accrue, they build, they accumulate. This was a finding by Ed Diener, the University of Illinois, a groundbreaker in the research on well-being and happiness. It may seem counterintuitive, but the data speak. Again, the small things, the little things in life, it's very encouraging to know that they are the ones that seem to count more than one big celebration could, is if you could savor a huge celebration intensely and you're done for the year. You know, it doesn't work that way. You cannot, like a camel, take a lot of it in and hold on to it. We fade over time. We need to be replenished, resupplied.
So your co-author, Joe Veroff, had a strategy to extract the most pleasure from reading letters from his grown children. And in many ways, his strategy speaks to some of the themes we've been discussing in the last few minutes. Can you paint me a picture of what he did?
Joe and I both, in writing this book, wrote down our favorite kinds of savoring experiences. And for many years, he and his children used to write what they called a chain letter. He would often start it. He would write a letter to one of his kids, and the kids then would be writing their own letter. They would enclose his letter with their own and send the letter to another sibling. He had 5 children, and so this would take a period of time. The second child would have Joe's original letter and the second sibling's letter, and then in their own time write a letter. This would just be anything that came to mind, their thoughts, their insights, their fears, their dreams, things that were happening to them. There's a way for them to share, but across a long period of time, until finally the last letter would come back to him, and he would get 5 letters in addition to his original letter. These chain letters came around about 2 or 3 times a year. And finally, reading them all together, Joe said, he just loved reading them when they came. He didn't always read them instantly. He would find a quiet moment where he could read each one very slowly and deliberately. It's a beautifully creative way of savoring life together. And he could feel, he said, his family gathered in the room around him as he read the letter. It's so much more lasting than a phone call or an email. The emails get buried. This was something he held on to and cherished. I suspect he passed it along to his children. Probably they found the letters after he died. It's a wonderful idea, though, to be able to see the sum of the parts is so much bigger when seen across time like this.
In the second part of our mini-series on savoring, coming up in our next episode, we dive into more techniques to extract the greatest pleasure from life. I could give you some examples of what it will contain, but really, why don't you take a minute and imagine the pleasures that await you? Fred Bryant is a psychologist at Loyola University, Chicago. He's the author, with Joseph Veroff, of the book Savoring, a new model of positive experience. Fred, thank you for joining me today on Hidden Brain.
Thank you, Shankar. It's a pleasure.